more problems when it's dark. And so we're going to fast forward and show you Carolina view because this storm is so large. But this is a product for Florence that our friends at NOAA release. And this is actually the radius from the center of tropical storm and hurricane force winds. And so we're going to start when it is dark outside later this evening. And at that time, most of the Cape Fear region involved with tropical storm force wind conditions. And because of our position to the west of the center of the hurricane, these winds will be coming in from the north. As the story and narrative unfolds overnight tonight, unfortunately, I feel like it's going to be one of those long and roaring type of nights. The center of Florence may be very close to Cape Fear, Bald Head Island, or perhaps an east-facing beach like Wrightsville Beach, just depending on how exactly it sort of wobbles. But we're getting close to a landfall point functionally overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. What does that do wind-wise? Well, it just continues to stress trees and power lines and even structures, because notice how all of us are involved with at least tropical storm force winds, and many of us, including likely Wilmington Metro, overnight and into tomorrow morning, get into those hurricane force winds. And this is what's truly troubling about the situation as we go 9 more to tomorrow afternoon and evening. The bullseye of hurricane force winds, if it's going to be anywhere, it would be here in the Cape Fear region back to the Grand Strand. And then it's not comfortable on the periphery of that. There still is a large radius of tropical storm force wind conditions. So think about this. We're getting into it now. We're going 12 hours more, and this product can take us into 12 hours more. This is 9 in the morning Saturday, and the prognosis would be lesser in terms of hurricane force winds, but still tropical storm force wind conditions. So this is going to be a sustained beating from a wind standpoint. By the way, at this time, should the center be where it is, our winds will likely have reversed more toward a southerly direction. So you're going to get stress on trees from one direction, and then you're going to get that stress in the other direction. Unfortunately, we may not just see splitting, but full-on uprooting. So your radar scan to the rain side of things, you can see where the bands really stack up. South of Emerald Isle, south of Atlantic Beach, Fort Macon, up to Ocracoke. And we're still on the western periphery of those all-the-time organizing bands. But some are heavy and making noise between Burgaw and Leland and Belleville. Some of these bands shifting to the south at healthy speeds, 40, 50 miles an hour. I'll show you a wider view, and the hurricane, the core of which now fully in view by radar. Its motion undeniable, west-northwest. So that would keep us in play for these pretty major effects for a while, especially considering that the forward motion of Florence is slowing. So this morning, John and Fran, I was talking about wind speed analyzed, or excuse me, a forward motion analyzed at 15 miles an hour. Now it's down to 10. And overnight tonight and into tomorrow, Hurricane Florence's forward speed may grind down to 0 for a time, essentially stall or only crawl west. So that's why we're involved hour after hour, day after day. And then some of the impacts lingering in terms of the disruptions, at least well into next week.
And that's what we've, those of us who have been for any length of time, and Gannon, you've been along the coast of North Carolina now for the better part of a decade. Of course, Fran and I have been here for, you're born here, but in many instances, these storms, as they come close to making land, they kind of step on the gas pedal, and at least they go, no matter where they go, at least they go and get out of here. But this is really the outlier to that whole thought process.
Yeah, the storm itself running into a high pressure system ahead of it. It's being steered by one high. That's handing the baton off to another high pressure system that's really going to block it. And so we can show it to you in terms of the cloud and radar presentation here. Hurricane Florence, Category 2 officially in a maximum sustained wind sense, mercifully down from a 3 or 4. But one thing that happens too is when you take a little wind energy from a fully formed heat engine like Florence from the center, you actually have to add it to the periphery. So if anything, its wind field has only increased. And one thing too, with the slowing of the speed, is another thing with this, the angle at which it's incident on the coast. Your latest official forecast track cone from the National Hurricane Center, essentially unchanged. Wilmington, John and Fran, we've been in the cone for 5 days now. And now, because of the time constraints, we are We are at that narrow port of the cone, and it's still aimed directly at us. And so we're not moving fast between today, tomorrow, and Saturday and Sunday. Really going to be an arduous process to get this through.
All right.
Angled right at the coast.
Well, Gannon, we're going to check with you a little bit later, but right now we're going to check in with Bob Bonner, who is along Bradley Creek Marina.
So my producer Peyton and I driving around Wilmington, we come by Bradley Creek Marina. We thought we might see some people doing some last minute things with their boats, tying this and that down. So what you see behind me, this is the actual water. Those are the boat slips. And if I go this way, and you'll notice the water stays, where those people are standing behind me, that is parking lot. And there's also water there. We are about, well, I know high tide is scheduled for 1:24. So I'm recording this at about 11:45. So it's already this high and coming in. We haven't had any rain yet. It just gives you an idea. Again, boat slips, parking lot. Not a good situation.
We have a house that backs up to Bradley Creek, and concerned about possibly getting water there. Hopefully that won't happen. Right now we're currently living closer up into town, so hopefully everything will be fine at the house that we're living in now.
So if people keep asking about rain and how much and storm surge, okay, again, no rain so far. High tide is not for, say, let's just be another hour and a half. And the water's already coming in over the banks here onto the parking lot area, the concrete area. So the situation, not good. Just something to keep in mind as we're getting towards high tide and the rains having come, and they will be coming for sure later.
All right, and of course, as we brace for Hurricane Florence, another area bracing because so familiar with hurricanes, the Outer Banks. And we have some photos from the North Carolina Department of Transportation from Hatteras and Ocracoke Islands showing sand and debris already covering NZ12.
Now, this is the road that many know has washed out many times. The only road that takes you from the top of the Outer Banks down to the southern tip of the Outer Banks. You can get there by ferry, but this is the road that oftentimes washes out when these hurricanes come through. And the Outer Banks is not taking any kind of direct hit from this storm either. I mean, it's all the way down toward the southern part of North Carolina, and they're still getting that overwash and the sand. So it could still be a long series of hours for the people and the travelers along the Outer Banks as well.
And on top of the Sunset Beach Bridge, ahead of the storm, Brunswick County Sheriff's officers took our reporters over the closed bridge just to give them a look at what it is looking like right now. Alex Garino took this video, and she's posting lots of pictures and video on her Twitter account.
And you could already see, taking a look there, some of the overwash that's from the Intracoastal Waterway. And again, this is the early part in the process, but once again, this is the top, from the top of the Sunset Beach Bridge. WECT's Alex Garino riding along with Brunswick County Sheriff's deputies. A lot of water there already, and a lot more is coming from Hurricane Florence. Now we have beach cams all along the southeast coast. Let's give you a look right now at our Surf City beach cam. You could see the surf off the shore there in Surf City, really continually getting pounded there, and the flag is being tossed fairly straight as it looks out over the sand.
Another area bracing for this storm, and of course Surf City, we were just there in June for our Highway 6, and absolutely beautiful place to be, but this area right now is bracing for what could see some catastrophic effects, and so we're keeping a very close eye on Surf City. Once again, this is from our Surf City beach cam.
And it's tough to gauge some with this shot as opposed to the shot when Colin Hackman was in Carolina Beach, I guess about 90 minutes ago,
right,
on our digital channel from when Brad Myers was in the digital studio. And you could see, because the pier would give you the perspective of how big the waves are. It's tough to gauge it on this shot right here because you really don't see how big they are. But that surf is already churning, and it's going to continue to pretty much churn all day there, all along the Pender County beaches. Let's go a couple of dozen miles off the coast now to Frying Pan Tower. Take a look at the shot from the tower cam out there at the Frying Pan Tower.
You get a good view here of what the waters look like right now, and that flag is still standing or waving, as you can see, but that could certainly change. But it gives you a clear perspective of what the waters look like right now. This is 35 miles off of Carolina Beach.
And that flag tattered, and that's going to continue to, 2 or 3 days again of the beating that it's going to take out there offshore. But the white caps you can see and the heavy surf there, all that is headed toward the coastline. So again, just taking you around, giving you a little tour of the conditions and what we're seeing right now all along southeastern North Carolina. Millions of people in the southeast could face power outages as the result of Hurricane Florence. But now, if you haven't, you still have time to make sure your refrigerated food stays as safe as possible.
The USDA recommends freezing water in 1-quart plastic bags or small containers before the storm hits. Just remember, water expands when it freezes, so don't overfill the containers. Those containers can act as ice packs if the power goes out and can double as drinking water if that's necessary. Anything you might not consume in the coming days, you should put that in the freezer, and hopefully if we lose power, it is not for an extended period of time.
Yeah, milk and meat can stay at a safe temperature longer if they're frozen, so if you have any doubt whether food is safe to eat after a power outage, don't take any chances. Just throw it out. I know some people, it hurts them to be able to throw it out, but if there's any question, you want to stay healthy because we got a lot of work after we get done with what's going to be facing us in the next 48, 72 hours.
I know some folks are just joining us now for the first time, have not been watching our coverage that's been going on all day. When we say Category 2 hurricane, I've seen it on our community page. Even my twin sister sent me a text. Well, this is good news, right?
Yeah.
It's better than the Category 4, but we're still dealing with a very serious storm. Gannon, tell us why we are still concerned about this storm, very concerned, even though it is now a Category 2.
Right, a multitude of factors. The categories of the Saffir-Simpson scale, they're going to be devised for max winds, sustained only. And that's just only one of many metrics of hurricanes. And by the way, a Category 2 hurricane, of course, north of 100 miles an hour with a lot of these sustained winds, and the gusts still in the 120s. So I put on a representation. We're actually at a little bit of a cumbersome period of the day where we're getting some model data coming in and maybe not all of it. So there's going to be a little bit of a jump here between our wind flow streamers of the Euro model, which has been all over this hurricane, and the future radar. But I want to give you the sense of another reason why this hurricane is the real deal in terms of its impacts. It's really its duration. So this representation, 5 p.m. today to 5 p.m. tomorrow. How long could you take to drive from Morehead City to Wilmington? A couple hours? Well, in terms of the longitude, Hurricane Florence moves from that lawn to near our coast in a day. So it's crawling. So we're in the impacts for a long time. And a hurricane doesn't necessarily have to be major to bring impacts. Major Cat 3 plus would be the definition there. And so I think we're having a little bit of an issue in terms of the model data coming down fully, because I just scooted ahead. So we'll get down to the impacts then here, predicated on the idea that rain bands moving in now will stay all the way through the weekend. Florence essentially not moving with any purpose through southeastern North Carolina, just going to wobble around. And so if you've been following our coverage on all of our broadcast digital platforms through the week, we've had this sort of breakdown of rain amounts with the light green, a few inches, the dark green, upwards of a foot, and then we've had this orange color to represent the idea that we get more than a foot, even locally more than 2 feet of rain. And those numbers, I just mentioned those numbers and that kind of metric, but really that is a ton of water to go into slam dunk, no other way around it, major lowland flooding. National Weather Service issuing a flash flood watch for very good reason, along with the hurricane warning that is in effect. low visibility in times of rain, not just at night, but during the day. So not going to be able to see very well. The long-term river implications of this storm are something that not yet known. I think some of our locally grown rivers like the Waccamaw will go into pretty significant flood. Cannot gauge it any better than that at this moment. The Cape Fear River, an interesting case. That starts in central North Carolina. Notice how the amounts drop off north and west. They're still significant, but they drop off. So that may mean less water coming down into Elizabethtown. But we'll watch you close because Florence is the boss. We can make a forecast. Florence is the boss. But I can tell you that, unfortunately, our rainfall forecast has not changed materially through the week. Case in point, Wilmington Metro, New Hanover County. You've been in the orange all week. Unfortunately, we still expect perhaps multiple feet of rain, at least a foot. It's going to last so long, so it will have the opportunity to dump those terrific rain amounts. North and west, tropical storm conditions trending to hurricane for most of our core counties and communities here in the lower Cape Fear region at 40, 70, 100-mile-an-hour breakdown for what the anemometer is going to ping as like a max. Okay, if we just break it down, what did Florence's wind gusts do? Very possible that Wilmington gets into hurricane force rather deeply. So we have that 100 baseline there. Here's the problem, though. It's the duration. A severe thunderstorm can produce damaging winds in a 15 to 30-minute time frame, and then the severe thunderstorm is gone. This hurricane will be doing it for hour after hour after hour. Just starting to get into it today. It will peak tonight, but only begrudgingly lessen by Saturday. So that is stress on trees and power lines. And when you combine that stress on trees with saturated ground that will be happening, trees may not just be damaged, they may be uprooted altogether. Structural damage still on the table, unfortunately. The surge impacts, and we're seeing some of this with the tide come up here, from our Surf City flying the hurricane flags there. These impacts are going to be independent of tidal cycles. So we're going into high tide cycle. When's the next one? It's immaterial. It's because of the sheer force of the water. And here's another important reason why, we talk about categories 4 and 2. Think about the legacy of Florence already. Hurricane Florence rated as a category 3 or 4 on its entire approach to the Carolina coast. Now officially a 2, but still strong at that, and its wind field has only increased in size. So that water, that momentum toward our coast that Florence has built up, that's not going to go anywhere. That's not going to dissipate. The water has to go in. So we're talking about impacts with this, including significant beach erosions given, but we have it listed, and also dune breaches and overwash. One thing with the angle of approach of Florence that may mitigate surge risk for our south-facing beaches, if only slightly, is exactly that, the approach angle. But we're pile driving water into Onslow Bay. So from our friends at Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle to Hammocks Beach State Park, New River Inlet, and then into the core counties and communities of the WECT TV6 viewing area from Surf City, North Topsail down to Wrightsville, and also Carolina Beach. So these are the very real impacts with a storm that has a legacy of being very strong, is still very strong, is large, and by many metrics growing larger, and orienting itself right into the coast with the track. John, Fran, a lot of times hurricanes form and they come up from the south and they sort of sideswipe our coast. Hurricane Arthur was a Category 2 hurricane in 2014. Formed east of Florida, sideswiped our coast the day before 4th of July. It brought impacts, but we had fireworks that time. This is a Category 2 hurricane that will be slower, larger, and it will hit with a T-bone collision right into the coast and drag impacts for days. This is a Category 2 hurricane that will not be easily forgotten, and for those reasons why.
Carries a lot more power than a normal category, normal, whatever the case may be, like you're saying, though. It's just the other, situation and circumstances surrounding it really making it a lot tougher deal.
And I got to tell you, listening to our meteorologist, from day one, beach areas were and are a major concern, and it's still mind-boggling to me that there are people who have decided to ride out this storm.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've been telling people, and, we've gotten, several shelters are full in some of our counties, and, they've taken a half dozen, maybe 7 or 8 buses up to the inland shelters. But, I'm surprised if I didn't have to work this situation, I don't think I would have been here when it was Category 4. I might have left with Sheila on Monday to get to higher ground. And I know you have said when it was Category 4, you probably would have done the same thing.
Listen, I had 1 foot in the car.
Yeah.
But we obviously
Right,
have an obligation to inform the community.
Sure.
But this has all along been a very powerful storm, and because it is now a Category 2, don't let your guard down. It's still a very serious storm. And again, some residents, even those in Carolina Beach, are riding out this storm in what they call Garage Mahal.
Yeah, WECT's Chelsea Donovan talked with them just a couple of minutes ago.
Hey guys, we're here in Carolina Beach where we know about 2/3 of the population has evacuated off of the area. That's about 4,200 residents. Still, of course, some folks that are riding it out. Right here, case in point, Johnny and Robin. This is what I like to call the Garage Mahal. Fish and sticks. This is a hurricane-proof building, Johnny tells me. I want to take you inside. It is literally like the Fat Pelican on overload. Wait until you see this setup. They are prepared here. They've got the sandbags. We're going to knock on the door here, see if they'll let us in. Wait until you see this setup. This is a sight for sore eyes, I guess you could say.
Come on.
Here's Robin. All right, folks, this is their hurricane pad of sorts. I'm just going to stop talking for a second and just let you look around here at what Johnny's collected for how long, Robin?
Years, many years.
Okay, and there's Johnny there. He is hurricane ready. Going to talk to him a little bit. Why did you guys decide to stay and ride out Florence?
Well, mainly because of people looting, and I left one hurricane and it took me forever to get back, and I didn't like that.
And so tell me about this building. You think that this really is built to withstand a hurricane of this magnitude?
It's built by, it's got 8 by 8 pilings in it. That's why we're staying out here.
Show me around. Tell me some of your prized possessions. Tell me how you guys are ready for the hurricane. I mean, you guys have got the essentials, and the bar, of course. The bar is open.
We got food, water. We got a backup generator that cuts on when the power goes off, and we got some medical supplies. She's a nurse, but now if she gets hurt.
Have you guys used this building before to ride out storms?
No.
This
No,
is the
it's
first
first
time?
time.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you show me outside? I think there's some cool stuff here. Kind of walk with me, Kristen, here. You can just take a look, take a gander around at what he's collected. Look at the street signs here. It's pretty cool. Walk outside. Look at all the signage. Don't forget to look up top. All his fishing gear there. Walk outside and see their backyard setup. They've got the grills ready to go. But check out the main feature here. Johnny, tell me about these boats that you built that are kind of doubling as bars.
I just built boat bars and got them tied down. I enjoy working with my hands.
So you guys obviously are riding this out. It was a decision that you had to make, but you're confident that you'll be safe.
I hope we are. I mean, we made the decision to stay. We talked it over, and getting back was the biggest thing. And people stealing, and I didn't want to leave what I had, so I hope we're safe.
We've showed you, we're not making light of this, but this is just a way that they can ride out the storm safely and enjoy themselves too. But are you concerned about any damage?
I'm sure we're going to have some damage.
And how long have you lived in Carolina Beach?
40-some years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to continue to kind of check on Johnny and Robin throughout the storm, throughout Hurricane Florence, and we'll bring you updates as we can. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much. That was an interesting garage, to say the least.
Yeah, and remember a couple of days ago, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, it's all kind of run together this week, but I think it may have been Woody White saying with the message that, don't use the fact that you had difficulty getting back here in another storm as the reason to stay here.
Right.
Remember, somebody, I don't know if it was Woody
absolutely.
or if it was Governor Cooper, but somebody, remember we ran a soundbite with that. And you heard that gentleman say that he had difficulty getting back here. He's obviously, you know, very confident in his building's ability, but that's what some of the officials were talking about. You know, that's really, they didn't really want that to be the reason why, because we've had storms before, and 40 has flooded, and some of those other roads has made it very difficult to get back. And you heard him, the reason he was going to stay is because of some of those problems.
Well, that's the challenge, John.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people were faced with, because it is very frustrating.
Yeah.
After the storm moves through, you want to get back home and then you can't. And in this case, it could very well be because of flooding, etc. But the beach communities, it's very difficult to get back on. And so if they went through a hurricane and they didn't have any significant problems, then you can see why they would say, well, I'm going to ride this one out so that I can get, so that I can be home and not have to worry about getting back home. It's a challenge.
It is, and we hope they're as safe and as confident in that building, and we hope they stay safe. He seems very confident in that building's ability to be safe. Let's just show you, they wanted us to mention to you that even when we go to some of our reporters, let's take that shot again a second ago. We're gonna try to keep up that live picture as often as we can, that even when we show some of the Chelsea's reporter, Bob's report coming up here in a second, we're going to try to keep a live picture, whether it be this one or some of the other live cameras we have, up on the screen as well to give you that perspective.
Chelsea Donovan is at Carolina Beach, and she, of course, just gave us a tour of that garage mahal. She is live with us now. So how are things going right now, Chelsea?
Pretty quiet so far. We're a little bit inland, though, right now, just a few blocks up from the beach. If you're familiar for Carolina Beach, you know that we're at CB Lake here. And what's interesting here is this has been drained down of significance because they, of course, are worried about the storm water runoff. And so they've drained down the lake a little bit to do so to kind of mitigate that problem. Wind's starting to pick up a little bit. It's very humid out here today. A little bit of a spotty shower, but nothing significant yet. But the good news is we're about 5 blocks inland. But you can see that folks here really taking the warning seriously. If you want to walk with me here, Kristen, you can see all around CB Lake here. Most of the folks are boarded up, put their hurricane shutters out, and really are heeding to the warnings. Want to talk about that too. We are seeing very little traffic out here on the roadways here in Carolina Beach, kind of across from Carolina Beach Elementary School. It's really a ghost town here, and that's exactly what folks in Carolina Beach want. They want you to stay inside. We're gonna pull a mic out here. Okay, hold on, Brad. A little bit of an issue. Pull that mic out. Let's see. You get the close shot of me now. I'll continue talking while she's doing that. What we know from Mayor Joe Benson is about 2/3 of the population of Carolina Beach evacuated off that island yesterday. That's about 4,200 people, according to the mayor. You should be able to hear us now a little bit better, Brad. And of course, those folks are unable to get back onto the island until, you know, it's time and all the damage has been assessed.
Yeah, we're having a very difficult time hearing Chelsea. We're going to try to get the audio situation worked out at Carolina Beach and talk with her more. But you can tell she's now in rain gear, baseball cap, so the conditions at Carolina Beach are changing.
Trying to get that microphone, if you've ever seen the gear that we have, there's a microphone on the camera and she's holding another one, and the one on the camera is the one that's taking all the wind. If we can disconnect that, it makes it easier for us to hear her on the other one. So that's what they're trying to do, and we're going to go back to her as soon as we can. You were mentioning earlier about all of the people who have reached out to us from our Community Voice page.
Yes.
Many of them saying they are staying here and are willing to talk to us about their experiences.
Oh, absolutely, and we would really like to hear from them. So if you're watching this and you have the ability to Skype with us, then let us know on our Community Voice page that you are available. We can also do telephone interviews with you. Just want to hear from the community and your decision on why you decided to stay at home. I think we have the audio issues worked out, so we're going to go back now to Chelsea Donovan.
Yeah, Fran, not sure where we left off, but again, want to establish where we are at this point. CB Lake here in Carolina Beach, and you can see here significant difference in these lake levels right now. This has been drained to kind of mitigate that storm water runoff. That's actually the reason that this lake was put into place, because they want that overflowing water that would be courtesy of that storm surge to go here. This is kind of the ponding place for it to go when that does happen. We are just a few blocks from the beach. If you look straight out there, you can see that is one of the ocean accesses here in Carolina Beach. This place, though, is a dead zone. It is a ghost town here in Carolina Beach, and that's exactly why they enacted that mandatory evacuation, signed that proclamation into place on Monday. Now we're under a 24-hour curfew here. We're not seeing a lot of folks out and about. A couple stragglers walking the beach, some folks, of course, walking their dogs, but pretty much everybody is in place. We know about 2/3 of the population here on Carolina Beach evacuated off the island, had to do so by 8 o'clock last night. That's an estimated 4,200 residents that left. No idea, of course, when they're going to come back. And the concern for officials here is the folks that stayed. Well, they need to be self-sufficient for quite some time. We're talking maybe a week or more. And so there are a couple folks that are doing that. You saw that report of with Johnny and Robin staying around 5th Street here. And a couple other things I want to talk about. Town of Carolina Beach will shut off the water today at 2 o'clock. Curry Beach actually shut off the water services for all homes along the beachfront. They did that yesterday. Duke Power will not preempt power, and so if the power goes out here on Pleasure Island, or more specifically here in Carolina Beach, that will be from the storm solely. They're not preemptively putting that out. As far as weather conditions here, we've seen a little bit of spotty showers and occasional wind gusts. It's kind of only just the beginning. Very humid out here, but we're kind of bracing to see, John and Fran, what's about to happen in the coming hours.
All right, Chelsea, thanks. Before you go, you walked through that gentleman's home a couple of minutes ago, or that garage mahal, and, you know, at any point in time, you've heard some of the warnings that the leaders have said about don't let not being able to get back here be your decision to stay. And I got the sense that that was his decision to stay because of some of the problems he had in the past.
He's never left for a hurricane except for Hurricane Fran back in 1999. Here's a great story for you, John. He got back by a boat. He was so frustrated on the amount of time that it was going to take him to get back here. They wouldn't let him get back on the island. He basically got on a boat and came across right underneath Snowscut Bridge and went home. You were hearing a lot of that about inconvenience trumping safety. That's not the message that we want to convey today. Couple wind gusts here, of course, is starting to get a little bit dicier. But yeah, that's not the message. And of course, he's got generators. He's self-sufficient. But one of the other problems too, John, is the possibility of looting. A couple hours ago, we saw some police here in Carolina Beach kind of making their rounds across the community here, looking for a gentleman who was trying to break into homes. So that's part of why they've enacted a 24-hour curfew as well.
That's disturbing to hear that someone was trying to break into homes. But, you know, District Attorney Ben David spoke to this yesterday, saying that there is concern about looting, people taking advantage of this bad situation. And that's unfortunate. But the district attorney, the chief district court judge, and the sheriff of New Hanover County prepared for this. They actually did what they said yesterday. They described it as making room in the jail. Right. They let some people out with misdemeanors so that there would be room in the jail for people who are out looting. The police officers, the sheriff's deputies are ready to find these people, and they will take you to jail.
Chelsea, I see that you're getting some of those gusts, the wind gusts, actually kind of taking your breath away here every once in a while. Are they coming more frequently now?
Coming more frequently now, and I think this is the calm before the storm. I think you're going to see us bracing for impact a lot more than we're doing just right now. This is the easy part.
Well, Chelsea, I want to address something because I've had a few people reach out to me via email to say, look, you guys are always telling us to leave, but then you're there on the beach covering the storm. Obviously, we have a job to do. You have a job to do. But Chelsea, you and the rest of the crew, we need to pass along that if it gets to the point that you feel like your life is in serious danger, you know what to do, right?
Right, Fran, we have a job to do. This is a duty that we signed up for to make sure that we bring you the video and the pictures of what's going on. We are the eyes and ears here for the locals in the community. And obviously, as you know, the pictures that we send back and the video and the interviews, these go to state level and federal level. So they can see the damage that these hurricanes cause. And so that's the duty that we're doing. But yes, we have a home stocked with food, stocked with water, all the provisions, generator, things of that nature. So we know as when this storm starts to get worse, which we know it will, we have to be cautious and know that we have to take shelter from this storm.
All right, and we do want to point out that all of our crew members who are there, like Chelsea Donovan, not only signed up, agreed that they were comfortable with going to the beach because no one has been forced to do
And
that.
we had a safety briefing. They all had a safety briefing together. All right, Chelsea, we're going to give you a little bit of a break. Chelsea and Kristen down there in Carolina Beach, but they all had safety briefings, you know, and you know, those of us who have been here for a while, been out and covered storms in the past, try to tell them what to expect if they've never been out there, and so we try to make it be as proactive as possible with their safety.
So important.
Yeah.
All right, we're hearing that Gannon Medwick has some new information.
Correct. I just got a message from Richard Newers, who is the hydrologist at the local National Weather Service office here in Wilmington. So some of the stuff that he's specifically looking at, one angle of the storm that he's specifically looking at. So the latest flood briefing here, I'll read it verbatim. First is red letters, by the way. This is a life-threatening situation. Second bullet, flooding may be worsened by elevated tide levels due to storm surge working into creeks and streams, limiting those creeks and streams' ability to handle runoff. This is an excellent squeeze play that's going to be going on, and an excellent point there. As you think of drainage trying to come off the mainland into the intracoastal through those estuaries and creeks, and then the surge opposing its motion, so the water can only go up. That's why the surge models have been cranking out double digits in many of our areas. Flooding also may be enhanced by debris clogging creeks and streams. And then the last bullet, significant flooding is likely to be observed in areas that have not experienced flooding in the past, possibly even areas that are not in flood zones. That to me is most chilling because we have had some benchmark storms as far as water. 1-2 years ago for portions of our area, and then Floyd in 1999. So this is where, you know, one category, one box that you can put a hurricane doesn't tell the whole story in terms of maximum winds. So very concerned about water impacts. Let's take you to the radar right now where we can show you the banded features of Florence, one of them backing rather quickly through central and western Brunswick County. So if you're joining us in this feed from say Charlotte near the radar site, or perhaps Ocean Isle Beach, and it's not raining right now, I would expect a quick blitz of heavy rain. This is band number 1. There's artifacts of it off to the north around White Lake and in Goldsboro, North Carolina. But then look at how the bands just organize and fill in to the east. Onslow Bay, from Emerald Isle, Atlantic Beach, they're stacked up so much on top of each other, there's no break in between. Here's how the bands are rotating, of course, counterclockwise. So Florence sending us its first rain bands right now, the first of many. Tragically, the storm on course to continue to slow down as it backs into the lower Cape Fear region. Speaking of another element now, winds. Here's the breakdown. Winds getting progressively worse from east to west. We can see that with Lumberton at 6 miles an hour, the last observation that we can get from Lumberton for maximum sustained winds. But Jacksonville, solid mid-20s with gusts to tropical storm force. All of that progressively works west. Now, I did organize a model for rain, the future radar, and wind flow. Getting some of the new Euro data earlier. This is the GFS. Statistically, a little less of a strong performer than the Euro, but hey, it agrees with the Euro now. Our fate is sealed with the circulation and the the outer periphery, all of it, all Florence backing west. This is 3 o'clock this afternoon. Just to show you this projection of a crawl of a storm as we get into tomorrow morning, arbitrary stop time 10 a.m. We could be talking about a center of Florence still in Onslow Bay with a little bit of play, because sometimes hurricanes, especially as they slow down and get into sort of nebulous steering, they wobble. We could be talking about a hurricane making landfall on our shores this mid-morning tomorrow. This is 10 a.m. Also, just the same, could be talking about a hurricane slipping in terms of its center just to the south of Bald Head Island. But because the storm and its sphere of influence is some 400 miles in diameter, we don't avoid it in any way. So let's move this forward. We're getting data into 5 a.m. Saturday. The roar, that roar where the house kind of breathes, and it's just the relentless, the sheets of rain and the wind. The storm is going to still be, this could be parked right over us. Or perhaps, the center, don't focus just on the center, just like you don't focus on the category. Still bringing significant wind impacts. Going farther, wish the storm would move farther, but it doesn't. This is early morning on Sunday. This is middle of the night. We're still involved in those bands. I'll add this. With the circulation projected to be, maybe it's not right over Florence. This is a model, but this agrees with the National Hurricane Center official forecast and other models. That storm center you see with our wind flow streamers to the west, that puts us in another precarious position. That means our wind flow is now out of the south. And that also puts us on the side of a hurricane that tends to feature more isolated tornado, or more spin-up tornadoes, I should say. They're possible into tonight, but especially as we get on the eastern flank of the storm. It may be a tropical storm rated by that time, but it's impacts, and we're going all the way into Sunday evening. The situation starts to loosen up, but there's likely to be legacy impacts even into Monday. This is like some spotty showers kind of thing by that point. But what a ride it will have been between now and then. We're just getting into it now, Thursday. You may say heavy rain and flooding, high or widespread. I haven't seen any of that yet. Well, with the progression of those bands on schedule later this afternoon, this evening, east to west. Wind damage has been spotty so far and isolated, really. We've seen that case in Monkey Junction. Michael sending us that photo a little bit earlier of a tree already splitting. I guess every tree has its own stress level. This one had a low threshold. We'll see more. Look at those wind damage impacts. Red tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. Storm surge, tide cycle to tide cycle. It's independent. Extremely high impacts. And tornadoes by definition are isolated phenomena. But Fran and John, in this kind of situation where you have so much momentum around a hurricane, a storm that is, or a part of a band that wants to, collect that rotation and spin up a tornado, it could be here and radar detects it. And then by the time the next radar scan comes out, 90 seconds later, it could have moved several miles. That's much faster than average. So what I'm getting at is potential warning time for tornadoes is going to be really low.
You may not have any warning is what you're saying, right?
It's very possible.
Yeah.
And so this is a type of event where, if part of your hurricane plan was to stay, it was always advised that you stay in a sturdy foundational structure and that it has that interior room. Because that's a safe area in tornadoes. That's, of course, a safe area in strong hurricanes, which bring that angle of not only damaging straight line winds, but isolated tornadoes. I have a feeling a lot of people hunkered down close for many hours, if not hours, days, with this one.
Yeah, well, let's hope we don't have to end up talking about that
I
tornado
hope not.
damage. Yeah.
One of the areas that we are looking at very closely, the Charlotte area, and that's where we find WECT's Ben Smart. How's it going there, Ben?
Hey, Fran, I'll tell you, it's the first sign that the storm is coming in. The sky is filling up with clouds. The leaves are rustling. I'll tell you, yesterday it didn't look like the storm was coming based on the sky and the winds and everything, but the winds are starting to pick up here. I spent my morning at Hills Supermarket. As we mentioned yesterday, that was one of the few stores open in town where people could get food, water, and other supplies. And the mood was really mixed there this morning. I spoke to about 30 or 40 shoppers there, spent a couple of hours there. A police officer was at the front door of the grocery store at about 11 o'clock, letting people only come out of the store. It was pretty filled, not letting anybody go in. People driving all the way from Bolivia, several 20, 30 minutes outside of town to get to the supermarket, one of the only places open. I spoke to one woman in the checkout line. She says she and her family had originally planned to evacuate, but they decided once the storm was downgraded to a Category 2, they were going to stay. And so she was at the grocery store just getting a few last-minute supplies. I spoke with a couple in the parking lot. They were feeling very anxious. So you'll remember Charlotte in this area is under a mandatory evacuation. She was very nervous. The people who were deciding to stay, she was heading out of town as the storm is expecting to start to pick up. As you can see, the wind is rustling the trees behind me. The sky is starting to fill up with some darker clouds. You know, when I was in the parking lot of the Hill Supermarket, you could hear the chiming of an Episcopal church, really kind of it's a sound like I can't even describe. It was, I don't want to say it was eerie. It was almost as if faith will not be lost throughout this storm. The church sending that message to, well, my IFB back in. I heard some feedback. Let's see, I think we're good now. Yeah, you remember this area is under mandatory evacuation. It's a town of about 5,000 people, and you can kind of see the cars going behind me. This is one of the side roads through the town, but I'll tell you, the mayor estimates about 80% of people have evacuated, but based on what I've seen today, I'll estimate that a lot more people are staying than was expected. You'll see some cars driving back and forth along this road. So, yeah, the storm is starting to roll in here. I felt a couple raindrops earlier, but yeah, the skies are filling up with clouds, and really our first indication that Florence is coming this way.
Well, Ben, the woman that you saw at the grocery store spoke for many others who feel the way she expressed, that the storm had been downgraded to a Category 2. And I think some people found relief in that, took comfort in it, thinking that the storm is not going to be as significant as first told. But we're saying it over and over and over again until the storm moves in and people see this is still a very serious storm.
Did any of those people...
Yeah, we're watching and listening.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're watching very closely and listening to our meteorologists. You know, they're obviously the experts here. You can't just look at a simple number, Category 2, 3, 4, and that will tell you everything. That's simply not the case, as our meteorologists have been saying over and over again. But in the grocery store this morning, they were bare bones staff. There was 4 or 5 employees working. The manager says this morning was just a rush, as they're one of the only stores open. Walmart closed, people getting their last minute supplies. But really the sense from most people is that the sense of urgency has gone down. But as we are saying over and over again, that should not be the case. But yeah, people are deciding to stay here with that storm being downgraded just a little bit. Yeah, there are those who are feeling anxious. And one woman, you know, as I was getting ready to shoot part of my story, a car drove by, yelled the words "hurricane party." Perhaps they're joking, but this is not something to be taken as a joke. One woman walked over to me and says, she told me she was really upset that somebody would even call this a party. Somebody would even suggest that this was something to be taken lightly. She was almost in tears as her and her friend were out to, they're getting their last minute supplies before evacuating. So really, there are those who are heeding the warnings and taking it very seriously here. Charlotte is a town that has a river that goes up from the ocean to up in town, and one of the main concerns here is that bottleneck effect. As the river narrows and as the storm surge and the flooding gets in, that could potentially cut off access to a bridge which connects people from place to place. Fran and John.
All right, Ben Smart reporting live from Charlotte. We will, of course, check back with you shortly. But right now we're going to go to Marissa Hundley, who is talking with the mayor of Wilmington.
Hi, Fran. Yeah, we're in downtown Wilmington at the Embassy Suites right on the Cape Fear. I was in a long line to talk to the mayor. He was just talking with Anderson Cooper from CNN. Who else have you talked to?
I've talked to Craig Melvin with NBC, Stephanie Rule with NBC, of course Stephanie Abrams with the Weather Channel, Brian Williams last night, Don Lemon, just about everybody. They're all here. They're all concerned, and it's you know, they're concerned about what's going to happen here.
And you've been through quite a few hurricanes. You've grown up in this area, but as mayor, how does this coverage compare to past hurricanes?
I personally have never seen coverage like this. I mean, you have almost every major news organization in the country that is here covering this, and they've been on top of it. I've also thanked them also for the amount of information that they have gotten out there to the citizens and to the public, because I believe that the public took this very seriously and heeded what we have been saying from the emergency management folks. So a lot of people have left the area. And what we're hearing from the National Weather Service is 20, 30, up to maybe even 40 inches of rain in some isolated areas. So this is going to be a significant rain event, because this storm is going to be on top of us for about 48 hours. It's a large storm. It's 400 miles wide. So we're going to be feeling the effects of this for days. So, my concern is that, after this storm passes, we're going to have a lot of flooded creeks. We're going to have a lot of flooded roadways. Predominantly where we've had flooding in the past, you're going to see flooding again. And when people may want to try to get out there to drive around, and you see, an area where you think you can get through with your car or your truck, and you're not going to be able to get through it. And we've seen that situation in Matthew 2 years ago, where we lost several people that died trying to get through, heavy standing water. So we're going to see the same thing in those same areas. And we're going to also see a lot of downed trees, a lot of downed power lines. It's going to take some time to get the power back on to this community, but we have Duke Power that is positioning a lot of resources about 100 miles from here in Kinston at the Global Trans Park. So when this storm passes, they'll be bringing in those resources as quickly as possible. And then the other thing that has us concerned is with the amount of people that have moved out of the area. I know a lot of people are going to want to move back into the area as soon as this storm passes, to get back to their homes and get back to Wilmington. And some of those creeks and rivers, some of that water goes down. We may not be able to get you back here in a day or 2 days. It may take 2 or 3, 4 days to get back.
And going back to all of the support that you've gotten and coverage, you've gotten the attention of the president. President Trump called you, like an hour and a half ago?
He did, and he offered any kind of assistance at the federal level. He said he's been watching the storm. He's been getting updates on the track of the storm. He understands this is a pretty significant event for our community, and he just wanted me to know that anything that he can do as the president and the resources of the federal government are at our disposal, and we appreciate him calling.
What was it like to get a call from the president?
It was good. It was, and I told him that. I says, you usually don't get a call from the President of the United States, but I was in the middle of a press conference there at the New Hanover County executive office there, and calling me. But I told him I appreciated him taking out from his busy schedule to talk to me. Of course, the vice president was there also, but they just wanted me to know that they're watching the situation, they're on top of the situation, and when this thing passes, anything that we need from FEMA, that they're there for us. And I told him I appreciated him calling me and telling and giving us the assurance that the federal government will be there to back us. And we've always had a good relationship with the federal government when it comes to storms and storm events, and it's been a good coordinated effort between the federal government, the state government, and the local governments, everybody working together.
I mean, it's got to be pretty exciting getting a call from the president, but when you think of the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to get a call in the middle of the press conference today. My phone went off.
Your cell phone?
It was my cell phone that went off, and when the cell phone went off, I didn't know who it was,
Well, it might be him again.
and I cut it off, and then I saw it come over again, and I says, "Oh my goodness, somebody's calling me." So I went out to get the call, and it was the White House, and they said the president would like to speak with you, and I was like, "Of course." So, but I appreciate him calling, and I appreciate him his kind words, and also the concerns that he has for the people in this region, in this area.
And you think about the Cape Fear River. Floyd set the record for flooding here, right? What was it, 23 feet?
About 23 feet, and we expect that to be surpassed in this storm, with this storm event, and that's got us all concerned.
And you look over at the marina over here and the pilings, and we think, they're about 10 feet high?
Yes, and we just hope that they have been built, or those pilings are long enough that they will keep those floating docks in place, or else those floating docks are going to go over those pilings, and we're going to see a lot of boats and that entire marina over on the other side of the river.
But you were talking about how in Wilmington we have a good situation with the river flooding because there is that barrier of the marshland?
Yeah, we have a tremendous amount of marsh area that extends from basically Wilmington all the way to Leland. So we have a large area where the water can dissipate once it comes downstream, which helps. I'm not saying we're not going to get flooding, because we are going to get flooding, especially in the downtown area, especially around the federal courthouse and Waterfront Park. But it does help to have that large of an area where the water can then expand once it gets here. In other areas, like when you get up around Elizabethtown or Lumberton, Fair Bluff, where the river is very narrow and then it spills over, it has nowhere to go but, you know, there on the sides. And of course, a lot of people have built their homes right there. And of course, if it exceeds flood stages, that's where we get a lot of the flooding. I also got a call from also the governor's office, as well as Senator Tillis, telling us that anything that they could do to help us down here, they would definitely be here for us. So I appreciate everybody coming together to give us the help that we're going to need when this thing is finally gone.
And of course, it's hard to tell what exactly is going to happen with downtown, but what do you expect it to look like in a few days?
Well, hopefully, you know, we're going to get through this thing and we're going to be okay. We've been through a lot of hurricanes, and I've lived here all my life, and we've seen quite a few of them. You know, I think downtown will be okay, but we're going to have flooding. There's no doubt about it. We're going to have trees that are going to come down. We're going to have power possibly out for a week, maybe even 10 days. We're going to have damage to roofs and buildings, and there's no doubt about it. With the winds even at 105 to 110, maybe a gust up to 120, we're going to have damage. We just hope it's minimal. Yeah. I think everybody is prepared. I think the citizens are doing a phenomenal job in getting prepared. And so we're going to ride this thing out, and when it's over, we'll get out here and assess what the damages look like, and then we'll get to work to fix it as quickly as possible.
And how do you see the difference in preparations for this storm versus storms past?
Well, with every storm we learn something, and obviously with our emergency management teams, they evaluate the changes that need to be done and how we work together and how we better coordinate our efforts. So I see that in the emergency operations centers, everybody's sitting at the table. As the information is given to us, we know where it goes, who's going to handle it, what teams are where. We have pre-positioned teams around the community to go out to assess the damage almost immediately. We have constant communication with our friends in Washington and our friends in Raleigh. So the coordinated effort as to how we work together is changed over time and over the years. And I'm sure we'll learn something when this storm passes that we didn't think about, that we didn't think about at the time. But, you know, I think just the communication, the folks like you, the folks in the media, the information that you folks get out to the community is invaluable. I mean, we can't say enough and thank you enough for all of the information that you get out there, because I think people listen and hear and then, you know, get that information and then start taking the adequate measures to protect their home and their lives and get out of harm's way. So, you know, I know this is a bad event and it's a tough event for our community, but it also shows the greatness of a community and the citizens coming together, helping one another out. You know, somebody's out of town, you know, taking care of somebody's house, taking care of somebody's pet, bringing somebody into their home. You know, this is the, you know, you see the goodness in people in events like this, and the politics and junk go away, and then we just become human beings and we take care of each other. Now, that's the beautiful part of it, if there is a beautiful part to be said about this.
And I don't know if you keep up with the Wilmington Facebook page, but I just saw a post on there about how somebody in Houston during Harvey got a box of, I think, toiletries from somebody in Wilmington. And he posted a picture of that box and said, like, you were there for us then, we're going to be there for you now.
And that's, I can't tell you how many people from around the country are saying, what do you need? We want to come in and help. Plus the fact is that when there are disasters in other parts of the country, whether it be in Florida or be in Texas or wherever San Juan, Puerto Rico, this state, this community also gives something back and also gets out there and works hard to help those communities. So I think it's great to see that kind of camaraderie as a nation, and it's also great to see people just coming together and working together for the betterment of mankind. It's a great story to see. And, you know, talking to a lot of the network folks here, that's what they say about this community, is how, you know, we're working together, and really this is a good coordinated effort, and we're doing the best we can.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, did Fran, John, did you guys want to ask anything while I've got him here?
Well, no, we're going to ask you to ask him to preserve his voice because we're going to want to talk to him later on as this storm moves in. And he's had a very, very busy morning. Thank you, Marissa. We'll talk with him later.
Yeah.
He really has had a busy morning talking to Anderson Cooper. Very busy. But I mean, I watched him earlier talking to Anderson Cooper and Craig Melvin and all of the media outlets talking to him. And then, of course, he gets a phone call from the President of the United States. So he's been very busy this morning and talking a lot. So we'll preserve his voice for now. We do have some breaking news to pass along.
Yeah, the Brunswick nuclear plant is being shut down. Duke Energy is telling us they have operators staying at the plant during the storm, and they're going to continue to monitor the equipment there. But they're going to keep the nuclear units in a safe condition until they can be put back into service there.
Now, Duke Energy ensures us that the nuclear plant has several layers of protection. But once again, the breaking news is that the Brunswick nuclear plant is being shut down. Now, we've been saying all along that there will be power outages. From what we gather, there will be 100% power outages. How long this will last, we simply do not know.
And you heard even the mayor when Marissa asked him, you know, what do you think is going to happen with downtown? He said, we're going to have power outages, possibly 7 to 10 days. And that's what Duke Energy leaders during the media conference I listened to yesterday were saying. Worst case scenario, up to 3 million people might lose power. And it could be for not just days, but weeks, depending on how quickly they can get in to assess things. The governor warned that there was going to be widespread power outages, and he wasn't kidding because it's actually starting to hit all over the place. There's already at least 2,000 power outages in the area there, and that's just in New Bern, North Carolina.
And closer to home in New Hanover County, there's already about 400. Creekwood has 160 outages at last check, and those could increase as the hours progress. Yeah,
9th and Chestnut, 38 people without there. We had some reports earlier of people on Semmes Drive in the Pine Valley area without power. Had some people along Highway 74, 76 between, if I remember correctly, Bolton and the Mako Road area. They were without power, and that's going to continue to happen. That's kind of a foregone conclusion with 2 days worth of storm surge and hurricane force winds.
Well, and I said this earlier during our digital newscast. Don't put your pride aside. If you don't have a generator and you have a neighbor or a friend who does, and you're still with the ability to go to them, call them and say, hey, is it okay if I come and hang out with you? Because once we lose power, then you're going to lose cell phone service, and you're going to lose the ability to stay connected, and you're not going to be able to watch us on TV. You're going to have to rely on your cell phones, and then if you lose those, then you've lost communication. So I'm just putting that out there. If you know someone who has a generator and you don't hesitate to call them and say, is it okay if I come over? Of course, if you've got pets, then that's going to be an issue. But again, if you know someone, I know I would. I don't have a generator. I don't really want one because they scare me. I don't know how to operate them. But I would call a friend and say, look, I know you have one. Is it okay if I come and hang out?
On the way to the station this morning, I stopped in at one of the convenience stores along 17th Street Extension. You stopped at Tidal Walk on the way in, right? Yes, you stopped in. You heard Ben talk about the Hill Supermarket open down there in the Charlotte area. Well, Bob Bonner has been driving around and found that some restaurants are open even right now.
So with Hurricane Florence quickly approaching the coast, expected to start feeling the impacts later this morning, early afternoon, you'd think a lot of places might be closed. There might not be options for me if I stayed. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you just need those last minute items, you know, milk, just anything. We're driving around town right now in Wilmington. Surprisingly, you do have options, especially when it comes to food and sundries.
And we knew that there'd be a lot of people looking for, you know, something to get out and get to eat before this storm hit us. And we felt, you know, we saw volunteers come in, started working, and we'll shut it down in time to get them home safe. You know, pay attention to you guys actually, and see when the winds start picking up, and we'll base it on that.
So far, my producer Peyton and I have found Carolina Beach Road to really be a hot spot around Shipyard Boulevard. You've got the KFC. You've got Hardee's is open, Substop is open, you know, the gas station across the street. There are a lot of things that are open right now, ready to serve you, and the people we're talking to are saying that is why they're open. They want to help everyone ride this storm out and be safe.
Did he just say sub-stop is open?
He said sub-stop is open.
And chicken.
Yeah.
Could somebody bring us some chicken? I'm kidding. Please
Yeah,
don't take
do
me
not.
seriously there.
Yeah.
I was really kidding.
And getting to the point, because we were talking to Chelsea Donovan, 20 minutes ago, and you're seeing some of the gusts of wind take her breath away as she was starting to talk. Those conditions are going to degrade as the day goes on, and those other ways of, safely getting around are going to go by the wayside as the storm gets stronger.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go over to Gannon now. Gannon, when we talked earlier with Ben Smart, he talked about running into a lady in the grocery store who said, well, now that it's been downgraded to a Category 2, and we're going to repeat it until it sinks in, that because it is now a Category 2 does not really change the impact of this storm.
Right. I want to talk about this notion of generational storms. Fran and John, I would label locally Hazel as a generational storm, ones you talk about for decades. Diana, Floyd, and Fran, just to name a few. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought up Diana because someone sent me a Facebook message yesterday and said, wish you all would talk more about that one because it was a very significant
1980s were a quiet period of hurricanes overall, Hugo in '89, but Diana was a lone exception. And so let's break down the categories, and they're just for wind speeds. Hazel, 4.
Right.
Hazel, 4.
Diana, 1, 2. It was milling about. Floyd, 2. And Fran, 3. Just for that one metric category, I think too much is made of it.
Yeah. Oh, Floyd and Fran.
Because they're all different categories. We all remember them.
Yeah, Floyd and Fran, generational, I think they both were of that stature because of the damage they created, but both had gotten to 4, Category 4, and then backed off, similar to what is happening in this instance.
Correct.
And just because it goes down to 2, what still has that power that it generated, all that storm surge and everything else. So, we try to talk about this, leaders try to talk about, don't pay attention to category. It's what's coming that you need to pay attention about.
Absolutely. And a recent example, Hurricane Sandy, will go down in history as making landfall on New Jersey as a Category 1. And it wrecked the entire coast from a storm surge standpoint because it came directly in. And it was large. And those are factors, too. So I'm glad you brought that up, Fran, because when I got up this morning, 12:30, it was like I saw the 11 o'clock advisory and I thought, oh no, they downgraded it to a 2. And don't get me wrong, better than an upgrade from a 3 back to a 4 or 5. That's not, but I know that a lot of individuals tend to, that's like a good label to gravitate toward is the category. And I looked at the storm, nothing has changed. The forecast has not changed. We would love it to have had changed because of all the things. We'll go into those impacts, but impacts are greater than category. A couple minutes prior to 2 now, we have gotten the latest from the National Hurricane Center regarding those coordinates. I mean, National Hurricane Center is doing their job. They're categorizing hurricanes as is the protocol, so it is a 2, and it's our duty to report that fact. But we also have to add perspective. Here at 2 p.m., we're finding the hurricane's forward motion, just as it was in the last advisory, northwest, directly toward the Cape Fear region at 10 miles an hour. That's slower than it was yesterday. That's slower than it was this morning. It's slowing down. A high pressure steered it out of the Atlantic. It's running into a building high over the Midwest, and that's going to act like a blocker in football. It's just not going to let it go anywhere easily. Here's the cone. That speaks to that. So see how close it is, close to the Carolina coast right now, and each one of these benchmarks are equal increments in time. Notice eventually Florence gets some forward speed to it. That's through the Ohio Valley as a remnant form next week. But while it is impacting us, it will be strong, it will be large, and it will be slow. So that unfortunately has not changed. We have had the same color scheme all week, and I just keep thinking, numbers are one thing. For me to say them is one thing. And then to actually watch it unfold is going to be something much worse. Then it's getting real. Those bands now just moving in, they'll increase in intensity from a rain perspective. The timing of impacts, we've got to say all the way through the weekend because its circulation really doesn't move north and gain latitude until that Monday or Tuesday, akin to the cone. So it's a Carolina thing. It's a Cape Fear region thing. There has been some data that has suggested for us to allow some lighter contours, but that orange all week, most of the television viewing area, most of our area of dominant influence here at WECT has been in that orange, 12 plus. And we put the 24 plus there. As the mayor alluded to, there have been some data that suggests that 24 plus, more than 2 feet, upwards of 3 feet. It's all about how long it's going to hang out and have the ability to dump rain. Significant freshwater flooding, compounded with storm surge flooding, but we'll talk winds right now. Even though the downgrade happened from a category standpoint, which is tied to the winds, Category 2 hurricane winds regularly ping north of 100 miles an hour. And so as the core of Florence backs its way to the coast, we're still expecting most of our coverage area to at least feel strong tropical storm force, if not, honest to goodness, hurricane force wind conditions an hour, another hour, 12 hours, 24, 36, 48. Impacts, impacts, impacts. Already some trees being stressed by near tropical storm force winds. There'll be continued distress as we go forward. And so the surge standpoint, we follow the guidance of our friends at the National Hurricane Center with regard to their storm surge modeling. And that continues to favor our east-facing beaches and inlets and channels and estuaries as being the maximum. But Brunswick Islands and inlets and channels and estuaries taking very significant storm surge at that. So significant erosion and dune breaches. Some of this already underway, independent of tide cycles. Intracoastal waterway side, creek side, too much water, nowhere to go. Saltwater, freshwater, where it meets. Another angle to this. There's just too many angles to this to put Florence in a box as Cat 2. I try to answer as many questions on social media as I can. So I took a question from a gentleman from the river standpoint, a homegrown river like Waccamaw, and we'll keep an eye on those rivers. Too early to discern. But also took a question earlier as I sent it back over to you guys about someone curious, well, can we cancel our hotel in Winston-Salem? I said categorically, no. If you've got out, that's your plan, good, stay, because you'll be driving back into this wall. Now I send it back over to you.
Well, I have a quick question for you, and we'll have to keep it quick because we have an interview that we need to hit right at 2:05. Right. But I wanted to repeat a question that was on our Community Voice page. One of the questions was storm surge. That will only affect people who live along the beach, right? Well, absolutely not.
Correct.
Would you speak to that?
Yes. We could have points of the barrier islands that are the dunes either breached or overtopped. So you have water coming in, the natural inlet, like New Topsail Inlet is established, it's there. Carolina Beach Inlet is established, it's there. The storm surge will go into those inlets, and then you could have additional water, either temporarily or, God forbid, permanently forming new inlets in some of these cases. So you have water coming in from many sources into the intracoastal. Think about the storm, the momentum onshore. It's not a side swipe, it's a T-bone. It's a head-on collision or a T-bone collision, a more impactful collision. And so the intracoastal side, some of the creeks, you get the runoff for the fresh water, the salt water coming in. Absolutely not just a beach thing.
About, like the sounds, the Greenville sound that you talked about, the Bradley Creek area where Bob was earlier. Anybody near one of those bodies of water or a tributary needs to at least be cognizant that this might happen in the next couple of days.
The highest level of alert and awareness you can have from water impacts. I just want to say one thing. I know you have the press conference. Yep. I'm kind of in the driver's seat here because of where I was at WECT News at noon when we sprung into this coverage. But I'm going to be hearing from my colleagues throughout the afternoon and the night, and we're going to be doing that shift work. So we're going to get everybody fired up, and thank you for doing what you're doing so far. Sounds like you're ready for that conference.
All right, thanks so much, Gannon. All right, we have the opportunity to talk with someone who can speak as Gannon has and our other meteorologists, to this storm with great expertise. That is Ken Graham, director of the National Hurricane Center, who joins us now live. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And I want to start off with what we've been talking about all morning, and that is the fact that this storm is now a Category 2. As our meteorologist just said, the impacts are much greater than the category. Would you please speak to that?
Yeah, I would definitely want to agree with that statement, because it really isn't about the category. The category just looks at the wind. And when you really look at this situation, our impact forecast hasn't changed. It's not about that category, it's about the impact. So look at this, it's not about the category. So what I'm trying to talk about, a slower, larger storm really makes greater impacts on the ground. You have more storm surge, and a slow storm, you can get hurricane force winds longer, but that increases the rain. So it's so important for no one to say this thing has weakened, because just because the wind has nothing to do with the impacts. The impacts are the same. This is a deadly, very dangerous hurricane.
Mr. Graham, are you concerned that people prepared for it properly along the North Carolina coast, because of the fact that in the last 24 hours it downgraded categorically now? Maybe a lot more people stayed than should have.
Well, I hope everybody heeded those impacts, because if you really think about it, you know, you all out there at the station and everybody's been covering these impacts pretty consistently, independent of the wind. And a lot of us, like your station, has been trying to say it's not about the wind or the category, it's about those impacts. So I hope people are listening, because that's what it is. I mean, even the radar behind me, look how far away from the storms. That is really the onset of the hurricane force winds. So for Wilmington, things may look okay right now, but it's on the way. It's coming soon. So we're already starting to see hurricane force winds at Cape Lookout. So getting closer and closer, 170 miles away from that center, you have tropical storm force winds. 70 miles, you have hurricane force winds. So it isn't even about concentrating on that landfall. That's another point to make. Everybody focuses on that eye and where that's going to make landfall, but think of it, it's big. Those are the impacts. That's where we need to concentrate. And
Mr. Graham, you're in accord that this could linger for a couple days?
Yeah, unfortunately, that forecast seems to be coming true with it slowing down. And if you really look at the map here, it's interesting. I'll try to illustrate. This is 8 a.m. on Friday, still hanging right around the coast. Think we're approaching the coast, and we're still on the coast tomorrow morning. 8 p.m. on Friday. This is Saturday. This is Sunday. That's not a lot of real estate right there. So as a result, you're going to have prolonged impacts. The winds, prolonged onshore flow, keeping the water up. And think about the rainfall. The longer you hang around, the more rainfall you can get. 90% of fatalities in these tropical systems is water. So people need to be mindful of that and really be in a place to keep themselves safe.
You've been doing this an awful long time in the business of covering these kinds of storms. What, in your mind, is going to be the biggest impact once Florence actually hits the gas pedal and gets on out of here sometime Sunday?
Well, I think when you start looking at that long term, we have to jump right over to the rainfall. So we'll have that storm surge it causes half the fatalities, but the rainfall is going to be the other big part of this. Look at these rainfall totals, just staggering because of the slow speed. We're looking right around your area. I mean, 20 to 30 inches of rain. Some places could get 40 inches of rainfall. And even inland, as we travel in time, you're still getting large rainfall rates as far as Charlotte and Raleigh, 6 to 10 inches. And some of those could be a lot higher as the storm progresses slow. So you're going to have, even when the storm gets on out of here, you're going to leave a trail of water and river flooding that could last weeks.
All right, and one final question, Mr. Graham. We've got all of our attention right now on Florence, but there are other named storms out there. Should we be concerned about those at this point?
You know, it's something that I haven't showed too much on a lot of these interviews, but I mean, look at this. We're lit up. I mean, we're looking at Florence. We're looking at a system in the Gulf. We have Isaac out here as a tropical storm, Hurricane Helene, and we also have Tropical Storm Joyce. So for the most part, we're keeping an eye on this. So the big reminder, I think, for everybody is, you know, it is the peak of the season. We expect it to be busy, but this is definitely making up for August not being too busy. We're definitely hyperactive right now.
Well, let's hope in future years we don't do what's necessary to make up with it. We'd rather have a hurricane season, not have to talk about any of these storms, but unfortunately it's right here on our doorstep. Ken Graham, the director of the National Hurricane Center, we appreciate you taking some time to talk with WECT here in Wilmington, North Carolina, right in the bullseye, and we hope to be able to talk with you again as the next couple of days go through.
You bet.
All right, thank you so much. Actually, an honor to talk to Ken Graham, who is the director of the National Hurricane Center. And obviously, we are focused on Florence, but we would need to mention that there are other storms out there, and have to remind folks, because I think people think because we are in the middle of September that we are near the end of hurricane season, when we're actually in the peak of it. When we were just talking about Hazel, Hazel wasn't until October 15th.
Right.
Diana was in September, and obviously we just talked about some other storms, so we cannot lose sight of the fact that we are in hurricane season, and it doesn't end until November.
And again, our experience, we haven't had anything like this really kind of bear down on us since Floyd. But for those of you who have not been here that long, we went through a 3-year period from 1996 to 1999 where one storm after another was the norm here. Right. We had Bertha, and then a short time later we had Fran. We had Dennis, and then a short time later we had Floyd. So getting one every other year or so, like we did in the late 2000s and early in this decade, became the norm.
Right.
And, you know, God forbid we have something else kind of line up after this one, but it's happened here before.
Absolutely.
And so hope we don't have to go through that like we did in the past.
But then we've also gone through a period where we didn't have a storm for a very long time, and people got complacent. And you had to remind people what it means to get prepared for a hurricane. I remember I was 2 years on the job with Hurricane Diana, and that was 1984, a while back. And honestly, John, I don't remember any other hurricanes before that. Now, of course, you know, before that I was in college and in high school and so forth, and I had heard about Hazel. I wasn't born then yet, but I really didn't know much about hurricanes until Diana. And it was an eye-opener and a learning experience. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of folks with Florence. They are learning a lot about hurricanes that they really didn't know, because we haven't really had one of this magnitude in so long. There are some people who, first of all, weren't even born when we had Fran, which was significant. And then those who were, it's been so long, they don't remember how significant these storms are and what impact they can have. And this one, we keep hearing all along, is likely going to be historical.
Yeah, and this is going to be that on-the-job learning that so many thousands of families are going to have in their mind now. Preparation for next year, I think, will be a lot better than preparation was this year. They wanted us to mention that Chelsea Donovan shared a short time ago that they were shutting off the water on Carolina Beach at 2 o'clock.
Right.
We're getting word from Topsail Beach that they're actually cutting water off at 2 o'clock there as well.
Pender County released this information on Twitter. A mandatory evacuation was issued for Topsail yesterday, so a lot of folks are not even there, but for those who are, the water will be shut off.
Yeah, so if you're sticking around, you're not going to have water service. On the right, our weather camera from Surf City, flying the hurricane flag. On the left, this is the tower camera from the, I've lost my...
Frying Pan?
Frying Pan Shoals. Frying Pan Tower out there about 30 miles off the coast. That just went blank there for a second. But look at some of the conditions about 30 miles offshore and then right here onshore in those two live pictures that you're getting at almost 2:45.
Well, and don't feel bad about that, John, because there will be things that we will forget, because we're going to be here for a little while. We're here for the duration of the storm. And I want to mention this. If you have any questions about Hurricane Florence, and a lot of folks do, New Hanover County has a hotline for you. All hurricane-related questions can be asked there. The number is on your screen. It is 910-798-6800. That number, once again, is 910-798-6800. But, John, we've been saying this for the past couple of days. We have a community voice page on Facebook. It's called WECT Community Voice, and I absolutely love that page because we are getting lots of information exchanged on that page. If you have questions, you can call that hotline number there, 910-798-6800. That's New Hanover County's helpline. You can also go to our WECT Community Voice page. You can ask questions, and we are working very diligently to get your questions answered.
A lot of times members on the page or members of the community may have the answers.
Exactly.
Somebody was looking for some help in getting things moved, or somebody is, do you know anybody that can be able to come over and help cut down a tree? Well, all of a sudden somebody reacts, and then you have a problem solved just within the community that's already gathered together.
Well, here's what was cool on the Community Voice page. The owner of, and let me make sure I have this right, Mulch and More in
Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that.
He posted on our page that he doesn't have any sandbags, but if you need sand, just go in, take what you need. It would be nice after the storm if you came and paid him later, but in the meantime, he's offering it right now, free of charge, for the moment, because he wants to help out the community. I thought that was so fantastic.
And where else do you get that kind of, you know, that getting it out there to probably a community that needed it right around that area, except on the WECT Community Voice page. Gannon Medwick is taking a little bit of a break. I think, are we supposed to go over to Eric next, Brad? Okay, let's go over to meteorologist Eric Davis. He's got some thoughts about coming back in here, Eric, and what you've seen as the day's gone on so far.
I think it's unfolding, unfortunately, just the way we thought it probably would. The weather, we told you today, was going to go downhill gradually, but surely it's beginning to happen, and you can definitely see, appropriately enough, those hurricane warning flags right now flying in Surf City. This is a look at our camera. You can see the ocean looking very, very angry, and unfortunately, as we all know, it's going to get much, much worse before all is said and done. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest advisory on Hurricane Florence. 105-mile-per-hour sustained winds, but again, we don't want you to focus on that Category 2. As if you've been watching Chief Meteorologist Gannon Medwick's coverage, we've explained so many times why this storm poses just a multitude of dangers, one of which, of course, is that this particular hurricane, unlike a lot of the ones that we've seen in the past, is going to make a direct head-on collision with particularly our east-facing beaches, and we just cannot emphasize enough how dangerous the storm surge is going to be, and not probably only along the beaches, talking from North Topsail Beach all the way down to Ford's Fisher and really everything in between. That water will eventually end up in a lot of the estuaries and potentially even traveling a little bit further than that. And the storm surge danger is very real because of that head-on collision that we're going to see with this storm. 105-mile-per-hour sustained winds, but remember that wind field is so large. So I haven't done the exact math on this, but think about this a minute. You've got a hurricane, or I should say a hurricane that basically has 400 miles, if you go across 400 miles of tropical storm force winds. You slow that hurricane down to what, maybe 3-4 miles per hour? That's where we very well could be. Do the math. We're in this for many, 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 many hours. Just a relentless beating for our coastline, and even a lot of our inland areas are going to see hurricane force winds at some point. It's going to be a relentless beating with the wind and, of course, the rainfall. We're talking about possibly 1 to 2 feet of rain. It is just not a good scenario either. 33.6 north, 76 west, the current track. And of course, the forecast track, unfortunately, this looks very familiar, and it's not the good news. It's a little bit of good news that the intensity of the hurricane has come down, but we're talking about a very wide wind field, a direct head-on collision along our east-facing beaches. And look how relentlessly slow this is going to be. 8 a.m. tomorrow. Look at that, 8 a.m. You can see this is 8 a.m. tomorrow. 8 a.m. on Saturday, the storm just probably crossing the North Carolina, South Carolina line. But remember, even when it crosses the North Carolina, South Carolina, guess what? We're still in the core of the storm. We're still getting that relentless onshore flow into Wrightsville Beach, into Carolina Beach, probably even up into Topsail Beach, even on Saturday morning. It's just going to be a rolling disaster as the center of the storm drops a little bit further to the south from about North Topsail Beach to Wrightsville Beach and Carolina Beach as you start to get in that onshore flow hour after hour. A lot of times we get the question, well, what is high tide with this particular storm? It's around 11:30 on average across most of our area beaches. But you know what? It almost doesn't matter because it is going to be not just one tide cycle. It's going to be 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 high tide cycles where you get this relentless onshore flow. Eventually, the storm will make its way back into South Carolina. But again, it is going to be a long, long haul with this system. Now, take a look at this. Sure sign that things are beginning to deteriorate. These will look at some of the latest wind gusts that we saw 39 miles per hour at Riceville Beach. So we're getting really close right now to that tropical storm threshold. But offshore, look around Beaufort. 58 mile per hour wind gusts, and this is Frying Pan Shoals, 60 miles per hour. And there, of course, you can start to see the core of the storm as it begins to draw closer and closer to our coastline. The wind direction, of course, is going to be out of the north for the time being. Remember, it is counterclockwise flow around the hurricane. The hurricane, of course, off to our east. So it's going to be northerly winds for now. 21 miles per hour currently at last check in Wilmington. These are the sustained winds. And, of course, the wind gusts. And look at that. We are now gusting over tropical storm force at Jacksonville, 46 miles per hour, right at, and you can see a little bit below steer here in Wilmington. But obviously, these winds are going to continue to come up. And, again, I just want to emphasize, if you're in Elizabethtown and you're in Whiteville, you are not going to escape the dangers of this storm. We are still going to be talking about a tremendous amount of rain. And it's just going to be tremendous. Let's take a look at the timing on the winds here. A lot of people have been asking this question, what is the timeline for the winds? So let's take a look at it. It's northerly winds right now. You can see the core of the hurricane still off your screen at this point, but it's going to come into view here as we head through the evening hours. And look at that, the core of the hurricane by about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be a sleepless night. I'm not going to lie here. We're talking about stronger than hurricane force winds, maybe even sustained potentially Wilmington, Oak Island, and again, you just imagine the surge that'll be coming in, just a constant beating along our beaches as that storm makes that direct impact. And you can see even around Elizabethtown and Whiteville, 45 to 50 mile per hour sustained winds. You may even gust up close potentially to hurricane force winds tonight. And as the storm progresses, maybe along or just a little bit south of our coastline. Again, we don't want to get hung up too much on the fact, are we going to see a landfall or not? It's really almost a moot point in terms of the impacts. They're going to be the same. Strong tropical storm force winds. Look at that, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're still talking about sustained hurricane force winds tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock and potentially even for much of the day. Look at that, Friday night. This is very early Saturday morning. We're still talking pretty close to hurricane force winds along our coast. We still have that flow coming in, just that onshore flow coming into the coastline. Think about the water too. It's going to be pushing all of that water onto our beaches and then eventually into the estuaries. And it's just a very dangerous situation. It's going to continue to be, and maybe we start to come down a little bit on the winds, and it's just going to be a slow improvement maybe as we head through the day on Saturday. Again, another view of this, of course, there are the tropical storm force winds. They're indicated in yellow right here. Look at that. That's about 400 miles from where we are right now. See, some of the tropical storm force gusts probably already getting into some of our inland counties all the way out into the ocean. The red, of course, the hurricane force winds. And, of course, by tonight, particularly our coastal counties will definitely be in the hurricane force winds. And this is another 12 hours still in the hurricane force winds, even as we head towards 9 p.m. on Friday. So this is going to be all day tomorrow, a constant beating, slowly improving a little bit on Saturday. Hopefully by Saturday, the storm will be downgraded to a tropical storm, but still at tropical storm force wind field just about the entire day on Saturday as well. Wind impacts, of course, as we've been talking about, 100+ mile per hour winds across most of the viewing area. Remember, the official intensity is 105 miles per hour, but remember, the wind field has gotten much larger with this storm, and at one point it was a Category 3 or a Category 4 storm. So while the center of the storm may have been breached a little bit in its integrity, the outer bands are just going to be brutal as they continue to pound the coastline. 70+ mile per hour winds, so we're still talking about close to hurricane force winds if you're up in Bladen County, maybe over towards Fair Bluff. It does start to drop off some as you get into Cumberland and maybe northern portions of Sampson County. And of course, the impact timing, it's just, I mean, the analogy I like to use here, this is probably the analogy. Of course, the Hurricane Hazel, as we all know, is the benchmark storm here in this area. It was back in 1954, it was October of 1954. The storm was a Category 4 storm. It came in and out very quickly. Now, yes, it did produce a 13 to 18-foot storm surge, devastating storm surge, completely leveled the Brunswick County beaches because of it T-boned it. It kind of came in south to north, so Brunswick County beaches took an absolute beating, but even the east-facing beaches didn't escape it either. This one, now Hazel was moving fast. This one is moving very slow. It is true, it's not quite as strong, but it's just going to be relentless. It's going to be body blow after body blow after body blow after body blow. That's what we're facing here as we head through the coming period here. By the way, if I'm going a little bit long, producers, feel free to wrap me up. Yes, they're telling me to wrap up. I'll go ahead and toss it back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Eric. That was good information to pass along, though. And so we'll be talking with Eric shortly.
Do want to correct one thing. WECT's Chelsea Donovan said earlier that Carolina Beach was shutting off the water at 2 o'clock. We're told now that is not correct. We do know Topsail Beach is cutting off the water at 2 o'clock, but Carolina Beach is not, according to officials who called us and wanted us to make sure we made that correction.
We've also got some video right now of some strong waves pounding the Surf City Ocean Pier. The pier posted this video on its Facebook page. And as you can see, ooh, well, that is, would you look at that? That gives you a picture, a snapshot of what is ahead for us. Strong waves pounding the Surf City Pier right now.
And this is posted on the Facebook page for the Ocean Pier down there in Surf City. This is just again some of the strong surf we saw earlier. How the surf was already coming up and over some of the rocks in Carolina Beach at the north end. But take a look at some of these waves already pounding on the pier in Surf City. This from the Facebook page. I guess that bird had enough too. So that is going to continue. As you have heard the director and just heard Eric say, that's it's going to continue to just pound and pound and pound. Another community that is feeling the impact already from the hurricane is Charlotte in Brunswick County.
Let's go to Ben Smart right now. Ben, where are you?
Hey Fran, I'm here on the 3rd floor of the Inlet View restaurant. This is a pier that overlooks kind of a juncture of multiple, different water sources here. We're kind of at the mouth of the Charlotte River as it meets the intra-coastal waterway. Right now we're standing on Charlotte on the 3rd floor of this pier, but if you look to your left there, we got Holden Beach. I spoke with the mayor this morning. He tells me he believes the entire island is now evacuated. Access to that island is blocked off, a mandatory evacuation there. And then to the right there, we got Ocean Isle Beach, another coastal town there, a view from the pier as we stand right now. We just spoke with the owners of this pier a few minutes ago. They tell me that this pier was built about 9 years ago. The entire restaurant here, Inlet View Restaurant, has been here for, greater than 50 years. But they say this is the first time they're having to board up. They got this place ready. They moved all of their stuff up to the upper floors in case of flooding, which is expected here. We'll give you a look now at the waters. Pretty calm right now. The waters of the Charlotte River, the intercoastal waterway, no indication that there is a storm heading this way unless you look up at the clouds. Then you got some pretty gnarly looking storm clouds up there, dark thunderstorm looking clouds. There was a few raindrops as we were heading to this location a few minutes ago, but no rain here right now. Again, we're in Charlotte right now as we stand on this pier, a town of about 5,000 people. I spoke with folks at the grocery store this morning, the only open supermarket. You can see the wind there picking up a little bit. People in Charlotte, presumably, a lot of them are evacuating, but there were dozens at the grocery store this morning choosing to stay, John and Fran.
All right, thanks so much, Ben Smart, for reporting from Charlotte. And a lot of folks have decided that they wanted to stay. And we talked with Chelsea Donovan earlier from Carolina Beach, folks deciding there to stay even though there was a mandatory evacuation. Let's check back in with Chelsea Donovan. What's going on, Chelsea?
Hey, Fran, we're still kind of feeling some wind gusts here and there. No rain yet. Clouds really starting to pile in. But like I said, nothing too significant yet. But we are about 5 blocks off of the beach here at the corner of 5th and Monroe. This is kind of where we're hunkering down and kind of waiting so we can show you some new pictures and images. But want to take you back. If we can roll some of this video of high tide at Carolina Beach. That's around the 11:30 mark. This is all the way down at the end of Canal Drive at the North Carolina Beach fishing pier. That's a fishing pier that extends about 700 feet out into the ocean. It was ripped apart the end during Hurricane Fran many years ago, and you can see there the high tide, 10 to 15 foot waves crashing into the rocks there. That pier houses High Tide Lounge down by Canal Drive, and as we've noticed on the Town of Carolina Beach's Facebook page, storm surge right now is currently starting to encroach Canal Drive. This is an area down as you're going toward Freeman Park that is no stranger to flooding, but man, you can really see how that storm surge is crashing along the rocks there of the North Carolina Beach fishing pier. This is something that we expect much of the same. Those were 10 to 15 foot waves at high tide, so it's only just begun here. A couple other things to talk about of note. Yes, we were mistaken in the fact that the water was going to be cut off today here at 2 p.m. in Carolina Beach. We know, though, that in Curry Beach, just down the strip here in Pleasure Island, they have cut off water to all the beachfront homes. Folks, if you're watching this and you're wondering about power, the town of Carolina Beach is not looking to cut off the power. They will not cut off the power. Duke Energy is not expected to do that. So if you do lose power in the storm here, that is just because of the storm. It's not being preemptively done. Carolina Beach still under a mandatory 24-hour curfew, and police here, they're enforcing that. There are some folks still straggling along the beach taking pictures, but for the most part, we're not seeing many folks out. We're just seeing, you know, a couple people kind of out walking their dogs, kind of looking out their windows, taking a few pictures, seeing kind of what the skies are doing, what the winds are doing. But right now, we are still under a 24-hour mandated curfew here in Carolina Beach.
All right, thanks so much, Chelsea. And of course, we will check back in with you shortly. Brunswick County Sheriff's Office posted this video now on their Facebook page. Wow, it's beginning to show some significant wind and rain.
Wow, and we just talked to Ben Smart in Charlotte, and these conditions weren't prevalent there.
No.
Ben's conditions looked rather calm compared to this, these conditions here in Bolivia at the sheriff's office. Eric Davis is here. I'm just gonna, can you pop up Eric's mic? Eric, this is in Bolivia we're seeing here. We talked to Ben Smart.
How long ago was this?
I don't know how long ago this piece of video was, but
we talked to Ben live, and oh, you're talking about when this was posted.
Yeah, I was wondering, now that I look at the radar, there was a little bit of a band that that quickly rotated through. It's actually in and out right now, though, at the moment.
Okay, so, but we're going to continue to get that kind of thing, though, as the storm, the bands continue to come on land, right?
Yeah, these bands are just moving like lightning. In fact, if you want to take a quick look at First Alert Digital Doppler, you can see that we are starting to see some more banding, and this appears to be the real deal. There are some of the first real banding, solid banding with the hurricane now actually spinning into Onslow and now western portions of Pender County. We're going to have to watch the edges, too. Sometimes you get a little quick spin up. You can get some quick isolated tornadoes. I'm not seeing that right at the moment, but it can happen on very short notice. That's another among the many hazards that we have to talk about. That's something else we have to consider as well. But yeah, you can see that quick band. It moved out of Bolivia, moved quickly down Highway 17, right around Charlotte. Very intense, but a very quick moving band, but obviously just the beginning of what is going to be a nightmare situation.
Thanks. We have some more video. This sent to us from Steve Grinnell in Burgaw. This again, Fran, we were talking earlier, coming from the WECT Community Voice Facebook page. Some of the first rain bands. This about 20 minutes before 1. So this is just about a couple of hours old in Burgaw.
And we'd love for you to send your video in. You can do that by posting it to the Community Voice page, or just let us know via email that you are sending us some video. We certainly appreciate that coming in from Pender County.
And again, if you turn your cameras kind of sideways, you get a better picture. But Steve, this is some great shots that you sent us from that area in Burgaw.
Yeah, please try to, if you will, turn the phone horizontally so that we can get a broader view of it. Okay. You know, on my way in, John, I was noticing that there were still self-serve places where people could get gas, but hopefully a lot of folks that wanted or needed to get gas did that yesterday. And
WECT's John Smith found a gas station in Wilmington open and found several people there trying to get gasoline.
People still making final preparations as Hurricane Florence comes towards the coast at the Citgo station on College Avenue. It's just north of the Oleander intersection with College, and this Citgo station still open, still has gas, and there are people waiting in line to get those final gallons, filling up their tanks, getting some water and any supplies that they can find inside.
Gas stop, it's my dad's car, so I'm trying to get it to where he has gas just in case we got to get up and go. Yeah, I live all the way in Monkey Junction, and this is actually the only store that I have found with gas so far.
How many have you been around?
This would be our, sixth store? That's sixth. Yeah, our 6th store so far. So I've been here for about 15 minutes waiting for a gas pump.
So people making their final preparations for Hurricane Florence. Reporting in Wilmington, John Smith, WECT, back to you.
All right, John, thanks. Before we toss to Kelly, Mayor Sappho said earlier when Marissa talked to him that other parts of the country who have been, or that have been through the same kind of thing, are reaching out to us, to him obviously today. You've gotten some emails from people all across the country in the last couple of days of, thanks, thinking about you kind of emails too.
Oh, it's wonderful. It really is. People I haven't talked to in years who are saying, we're thinking about you guys, and hopefully the storm will have low impact on you. It's going to have significant impact on us.
Yeah.
We know that. To what extent? No one can answer that, not even our weather experts.
Yeah.
No one has that magical answer.
Yeah.
We just have to get through this storm together, and that's what's so great about this community. Everybody is supportive of one another, and then those across the country are reaching out to us and saying our thoughts and prayers are with you, because no one can say how this all ends. All they can do is say that we're thinking about you and praying for you.
And the community of Houston, Texas, going through Harvey last year.
Yes.
Daughter Abby went through that horrible storm in her apartment, 3rd floor. Her school was really impacted. A lot of those students there lost everything they had. They are watching our stream today.
Oh, hi, Abby's students. And hi, Abby.
Sending us their best wishes. So other parts of the country are kind of right there with us, even though they can't be. And that's one of the neat things about streaming on WECT.com and our mobile news app and Amazon Fire and Roku, is that these other parts of the country are seeing what we're going through. And people who have evacuated are watching us in Charlotte and in Raleigh and in Pennsylvania and other places.
Well, and there are parents who are going through what you went through with Abby during Harvey. I mean, you knew where she was located was a safe area, but still, it was a storm that you could not predict what the outcome would be. And so there are parents now who are concerned about their children here in the Wilmington, the Cape Fear region, who you can't say what this storm will be. I mean, even our Kelly McGlynn. Kelly, you're going to have to admit to us now that your mom was a little bit concerned about you staying here.
Yeah, and we were on Facebook Live the other night, and Fran said, I'm peacing out. My mom goes, if Fran says peace out, you say peace out too. And I said, Fran and John, they're like my TV parents, so they got my back, no doubt about that. We'll be safe for sure. We got a plan in mind, that's for sure. Hopefully you do too as well. You're probably already feeling these winds if you've stepped outside today. Not too terribly bad in some places right now, but it will start to pick up in intensity as we move throughout the overnight tonight, making our way into Friday, likely carrying into the weekend as well. These are winds right now just sustained, so close to 30 miles per hour already near Jacksonville. Wilmington, you're looking at 20-mile-per-hour winds. Whiteville area, Elizabethtown, maybe around 10 to 15 miles per hour. Again, these winds primarily coming down from the north as Florence continues to make its way closer to the coast. Already seeing gusts near 45 miles per hour in Jacksonville, near 30-mile-per-hour gusts already in Wilmington. We saw some of that video blowing that wind around. Near 25-mile-per-hour gusts closer to the coast near Oak Island and in North Myrtle Beach. So as we look at the wind radius as we make our way through Thursday into Friday, this shaded in yellow color here is tropical storm force winds. So that's near 40 miles per hour and greater. That red color in the middle of that are hurricane force winds. So that's near 75 miles per hour and greater. We got that wind field here already Thursday night, still continuing to feel those tropical storm force winds. Moving forward in time into Friday morning, most of these hurricane force winds will be over southeast North Carolina. So Pender County, portions of New Hanover County feeling very, very strong winds and gusts in the triple digits. We'll talk about that just a second. And then moving Friday overnight into the afternoon and evening, most of southeast North Carolina, our 5 main counties, could be feeling hurricane force winds and still extending to the outside of this, tropical storm force winds. So winds are going to be a big deal moving forward in the time. I mean, we saw that it downgraded since yesterday, but that still doesn't matter. We continue to say we talk about impacts rather than labels. So again, just because this has been downgraded, that doesn't mean our impacts will change here. We're going to continue to see very strong winds, significant rainfall, a storm surge going to be a main problem, especially as Florence continues to move closer to the coast. That water has got to go somewhere, and as Florence Florence approaches, it's going to move it on shore. That's why those mandatory evacuations have been put in place yesterday. Hopefully you've gotten out of there. Hopefully you're ready for the storm of what's going to continue to come, and it's only going to get worse too as this makes closer to the coast. Fran and John, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Kelly. And of course, we will be talking with Kelly and the rest of our team of meteorologists as the afternoon/evening continues. But right now we're going to talk with someone who has been very busy in our digital studio. Brad Myers joins us now from our digital studio. So what are you talking about right now, Brad?
Guys, it's interesting because, you know, in years past, there hasn't been quite the reaction on social media and stuff, but these days that's where the sheriff's office, a lot of the emergency management folks are. I'm going to pull up some of the updates, and they are doing all sorts of updates. If you are watching us and have evacuated and kind of want to get a check of that, that's what we're going to be doing here in the digital studio. I'm going to pull up first. This is the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office, Bay Street in Southport. They're just kind of showing some of the areas there, and already you can kind of see some of the flooding there in that. That's fishy. That's usually where you just walk right over. This is the parking lot, and you can see all sorts of flooding right there. Potter's Seafood as well. Over in Columbus County, they're giving out some good information as well, kind of what they're expecting with this storm. They also have listed some of their emergency management numbers that you can call, and they're also listing some of their shelters. They said Edgewood Elementary, that's in Columbus County, is at capacity. Cannot accept any more evacuees. However, you can go to the other shelters at Guideway Elementary, East Columbus High School, South Columbus High School, or West Columbus High School. Jumping over to Bladen County, just within the hour, they said effective today, there will be a daily curfew for Bladen County from 8 p.m. until 7 a.m. until further notice. Curfew requirements will continue to be assessed, of course, as the storm kind of goes through. Over in New Hanover County, the sheriff is posting all sorts of different updates. He puts, with Hurricane Florence headed our way, most of our personnel have been sent with their families inland. Had to make some adjustments. The K9 Explorer, Matthew will be riding partner with his big brother, so and they've just kind of been doing the updates. And then finally, guys, Wilmington is posting that stormwater crews have lowered water levels in Greenfield Lake and Randall Pond. This is all in preparation. Here are the pictures that you can see here as they were kind of draining those. Again, all in anticipation, just trying to do whatever they can to keep some of the flooding from going. So John and Fran, we're going to continue to monitor this here from social media and everything. Whenever we get an update, we'll let you know right here from the digital studio. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks so much, Brad. We certainly appreciate that. You know, Bob Bonda found out that Florence is not just a national story.
Yeah, this is international, as he found out.
And we're just now starting to feel the first effects of Florence. Right now I'm on a dock situated right off Airlie Road. You can see the Wrightsville Beach Bridge behind me. That bridge is closed, so you can't get onto Wrightsville Beach. But if you come down Airlie Road now, which if you're going to come out of the house now would be the best time because it is just starting to rain a little bit. But if you've been on Airlie Road, you may have noticed a lot of us. There is a lot of media stationed along Airlie Road because suddenly sleepy little Wilmington, North Carolina is the national story. My producer Peyton and I also found out we are a global story.
Well, this is a storm that has 10 million people on the East Coast in its path. So for the BBC's audiences around the world, in Britain and here in the US, this is a huge story. And there's tremendous interest in the damage that hurricanes can do, in the human story of a hurricane, how people prepare, how some people ride it out.
I reported on Maria in Florida in the autumn and on Harvey in Houston, and both storms were very powerful. I'm expecting the same, so definitely I'll be staying indoors tonight.
Both of those folks kind enough to talk to us, despite their doing things across the globe, different time zones. They took some time to talk with us, both saying that they would be here through the entirety of the storm, and they're curious to see the damage. Both very interested in climate change and the way that this storm would be affected perhaps because of climate change. It's a very popular topic in European countries, and we'll see what the damage is as Florence now again making her way into Wrightsville Beach, the first band starting to produce rain.
All right, we've got some video from CNN that shows high winds and waves are impacting North Carolina's coast.
Yeah, the Carolina Beach area here. This is taken right down there along the boardwalk, right on the beach here in Carolina Beach. Some of the high waves coming in and pounding the shore, and this is going to be the scene we see for the better part of the next 2 days as that heavy surf continues to churn and just continue to pound the sand. And we saw earlier when Colin Hackman was down there in Carolina Beach toward the north end, Fran, that, you know, the pier already taking a beating down there. And, you know, piers that have survived strong storms in the past are going to get another test with this one.
Wow. I mean, I'm looking at those white caps and saying, okay, we are here. There's no turning back now. You know, I got to say, our team of meteorologists working so diligently and so hard to get this information out to us, because we've been talking about Florence for a few days now, and here we are right on top of this storm. Let's check in now with another one of our meteorologists. Jesslyn, how are things going over there?
Things are going pretty good, keeping a very close eye on Florence right now. You can see some of these outer bands starting to make their way in to landfall right now, but we've actually seen a lot of these scattered storms throughout the day already. We've been seeing the high winds, definitely some stronger storms rolling through some of the area as well, but just starting to see a couple scattered showers in the Burgaw area right now. Definitely seeing some darker colors, some reds, some yellows, and they're just whipping through. So they're not just staying there, they're not just dumping lots of rain, which they are, but they're moving out pretty quick. And these are fast moving storms, as you can see, as this continues to come in as we go throughout the next couple of days. But we want to take this hour by hour, what we can be expecting. This is for 2:30 right now, but then you can see it's going to start to make its way inland as we get into Friday morning, is when we're expecting this to really start making landfall here in the Cape Fear region. You can see all of the oranges, all that yellow. That's going to be heavy, heavy rains for the next couple of days. It's going to just be sitting along our coast, and it's not really going to be moving all that much. And this is going to be what we've been saying this whole time, a impact event. So yeah, it's a Category 2 hurricane, but you know what? All of this rain, all of this wind and the storm surge, it's going to be affecting us for the next couple of days. So don't let that number fool you. It really is going to be just a significant rainfall event with anywhere from 12 to 24 inches. So we're talking feet of rain here. So flooding is definitely going to be an issue. You can see all the oranges. So 12 to 24 inches of rain. So low visibility out there, that lowland flooding. So it's not just, you mix that with the storm surge as well. So we're just going to be seeing all the rain, the storm surge, the wind. It's going to be a very long-term event, and we're going to be seeing those river implications as well. So we're going to be seeing, just like I mentioned, lots and lots of inches, even feet of rain. So we're going to be monitoring that very well, but we're already starting to see some of those bands coming into our area, and we just have to be prepared. So make sure that you have the sandbags out and you are prepared for all of this rain, because it's going to be a lot of flooding. Even 2 feet of water can pick up a car. So we're expecting anywhere from 2 feet, and mixed with that storm surge as well. We're going to be seeing anywhere with the storm surge like 8 feet potentially for the flooding. So just have to be keeping our eyes on that. And we will be monitoring this, of course, as it continues to make landfall starting on Friday morning. But I'm going to toss it back to you guys at the desk for now, and we're going to continue, like I mentioned, to be monitoring this storm.
All right, and we put the call out earlier. I'm going to put it out again, and I'm getting quite a few messages right now from folks who are willing to Skype with us. If you've decided to stay put, and especially those of you in our beach communities, if you've decided to stay put and you would like to talk with us, and you can Skype with us, if you will, please send a message. You can actually private message me on the Francis Weller WECT Facebook page, and we'll get your message and your information and get you on the air so you can tell us why you made that decision. Yeah, and let's show you some video of more of the preparations, and the U.S. Coast Guard is ready to make any rescues that may be necessary. This is a video of the response trailer moving in here with all of the equipment they need, boats and fuel and other supplies. We have several Coast Guard stations along the coast, Oak Island, Wrightsville Beach, and
and up toward the Outer Banks, and so we know they'll be out there, and the crew is standing by and ready to make any rescues that are necessary. We hope they don't have to, but as the flooding continues to be a possibility, water overwash and river overwash may make some of those rescues necessary. We hope not, but you never know, they may have to be.
Well, and we were talking about our crews being out and being the pictures that are coming in, the video of this storm, if you will, provided by our crews that are out there right in the middle of the storm. To those first responders, to the people who are out there, we can't say enough about them because they are literally out there putting their lives on the line to protect yours. First responders have had their hands full preparing for this storm for days leading up to now. The fire department has to prepare for hurricanes 3 days before it makes landfall, and they have to educate people on the impacts of Hurricane Florence. The fire department has an established shelter registry for those who have decided to stay. Now, those on the registry will be visited by fire companies today to see if they have considered leaving. After the storm, they will go back out to those people to make sure that they are okay.
Fire crews are going to be going out today to make sure that these folks are again aware of that, and it's still, you know, we're talking about hours before landfall. So we're really encouraging them at this point to, if they're not going to evacuate, this is it.
Casey Roman is also in Charlotte along with Ben Smart, Alex Garino. We have several crews down that way. She's in Charlotte ahead of Hurricane Florence, looking at the conditions there.
All right, we are in Charlotte in the south end of Brunswick County, and we know our crews in New Hanover County on the beach are getting pummeled right now. So we are just kind of all this morning and early this afternoon watching Florence approach. You can see it's getting very dark out there. We've got Holden Beach right in this area, and then over here is Ocean Isle Beach. We were there this morning and it was sunny and easy to think that Florence was not right around the corner. Ocean Isle, and particularly anywhere with a bridge, Sunset Beach, those bridges are closed. You are not getting back over there. We know that there is one woman who decided to stay in Ocean Isle, but other than that, everyone else has chosen to evacuate. Charlotte has gotten very quiet now. As you can see, we've got the outer bands of Florence coming in. It's getting a lot windier, and we know that at some point we are going to lose the ability to feed back footage from where we're located. But for right now, you know, very much getting ready for impact here in Charlotte. Back to you.
All right, Casey, thank you for that report. And another evidence that things slowly but surely starting to go downhill. This is a picture I got on my Facebook page or on Facebook from Dennis Worley. This is a picture of Hampstead. You notice the water rise starting to show up. This is in association with the last high tide. Now, the last high tide was about 11 o'clock in the morning till about noontime. The next one's going to be as we head towards 11 o'clock tonight to about midnight on most of our beaches and waterways. So again, and of course the next high tide, as you know, is going to be much, much worse, as the center, of course, of the hurricane will be much, much closer by that time. But it gives you a sense of the water rises that we're going to see. And obviously, as we know, it is going to get much, much worse from here. Again, thank you, Dennis, for that picture from Hampstead. And here in Wilmington, we're starting to see one of the first initial rain bands really working its way into the area. This is a live view from our battleship camera looking back into downtown Wilmington. You can see some raindrops right there as some of the rain bands work in here. A little stronger rain band as you get up into Pender County around Burgaw. We'll have to see if there's any kind of tropical storm force winds with that one. We'll have to also watch for some quick spin-ups of rotation. Small chance of a tornado. I do think the tornado threat will probably get a little bit higher as we get on the other side of the storm, especially tomorrow. But even with these initial rain bands, we'll have to watch out for some quick spin-ups. As we go ahead and zoom on in, you can see that the rain bands are actually moving from northeast to southwest. So these rain bands are moving southwest, and they're moving very quickly. So this rain band you see, Burgaw, and this heavier rain, which is getting ready to move into downtown Wilmington, will quickly rotate its way into Bladen County, eventually into Columbus County, and probably northern portions of Brunswick County. You'll be seeing some of that rain here very, very shortly. Hurricane Florence, this is the last advisory we have from the Hurricane Center. 105-mile-per-hour sustained winds, but as we've been telling you, don't focus on the category, focus on the impacts, because that will be the story with this hurricane. We just cannot emphasize that enough. There are just so many bad factors. Are we thankful the storm is a Category 2 instead? instead of a 4, yes, we are thankful. But we have one good factor. We have 4 or 5 very bad factors. Namely, this is still going to be a slow-moving, lumbering hurricane. It's going to be hanging around here for days and days. And unfortunately, we're going to be on the wrong side of the storm. You heard Governor Cooper talking about we're on the wrong side of the storm. That is absolutely correct. Why? Because the storm center is eventually going to sink a little bit further to the south, and that's going to put that onshore flow right onto our coast. And to mention, the storm is going to make pretty much a head-on collision or pass just to the south of our coastline, and that is just a terrible, terrible scenario for storm surge, and that's why we're so concerned about the storm surge. We keep advertising that 9 to 13 foot number. We just can't emphasize enough how dangerous that could be. And not only at the coast, that water will travel into the intercoastal waterway and eventually make its way into the estuaries as well. And you can see the winds continue to pick up at Wrightsville Beach. We now officially have tropical storm force wind gusts, 41 miles per hour here, and the wind's only getting stronger. Look at that, 56 miles per hour now at Frying Pan Shoals, and obviously these numbers will continue to come up as the center of the storm edges closer and closer. And I'm using the word edge because unfortunately, as we all know, this hurricane is going to be slowing down. It's moving about 10 miles per hour right now. We would expect that to slow down to maybe 5, maybe even as much as 2 or 3 miles per hour potentially as we head towards tonight and into tomorrow. Storm surge numbers again, we still expect the worst of the storm surge because the hurricane's coming in like this. The worst of the hurricane storm surge will be on the east-facing beaches from Curie Beach, Carolina Beach, all the way up towards North Topsail Beach. But Brunswick County, you're not going to escape the storm surge. We're still looking at about a 4 to 8. We don't want to discount that. That is still very significant. We still would expect some problems in Brunswick County as well. But the worst of it is definitely going to be New Hanover and Pender County. So, and again, as we've mentioned, the impacts here, significant beach erosion. We're going to see a lot of beach destruction, unfortunately, I'm afraid. The dunes are going to take an absolute pounding, and of course, even some significant land flooding as we also get some of that flooding in from the intercoastal waterway, not just the beaches. Rainfall, unfortunately, we've been painted in the orange, just about all the area now painted in orange, and we're actually starting to really get some of the high-res computer models are really starting to come in, and unfortunately they are verifying exactly what we feared, that in fact we are probably going to be in line for 1 to 2 feet of rain, and some localized areas are going to see much, much more. We could see locally 30. I wouldn't even be surprised if 1 or 2 spots pick up 40 inches of rain. As a staggering amount of water. So not only do you have water coming in from the storm surge, that water from the rainfall, it is going to be a deadly, deadly combination, unfortunately, if people do not take this hurricane seriously.
Well, let's hope they have, Eric, because at this point in time, many of them, as Casey just said a couple of minutes ago, there's really nowhere they can go now. Unless you're in an unsafe situation in your home, you might be able to get to one of the shelters. But it's going to get to a point here pretty soon that even traveling is not going to be advised. And they're going to tell you, if asked, 911 and rescue operations won't be able to come in when the storm reaches its heights, but you probably still may have some time to get to a shelter if you do not feel safe in your home. Some people are starting to lose power. We had some communities, I guess about an hour ago, report some power outages. WECT's Brad Myers is in our digital studio, and you have more on some of those power outages, Brad. They're starting to pile up here and there across our part of the country, part of our state.
Exactly, John. And as expected, we are starting to follow some of those. I'm going to zoom in here on my map. This is Duke Energy power outages. Of course, there are several other power companies across our area, but we'll start with them. I'm going to zoom in here just beyond the Topsail Beach area here. I clicked on this earlier. There was a little over 1,100 customers already affected with this, possibly up to 1,200 almost with that. If you zoom back out and kind of come back in here just outside of Wrightsville Beach, that number is 73. And then in the downtown area, obviously we've yet to really see anything. They say 2. We expect that number to come up. Now, that could be from something else, of course, but obviously the hardest hit area right now early on is Topsail, and that's where we're seeing well over 1,100 power outages. We're going to continue to monitor that. John, while I do have you, I want to pull up another video here. This is Frying Pan Tower. You remember we were showing that video. This is 34 miles off the coast of Carolina Beach. Take a look at that flag. We showed it earlier. It was looking good. It is now tattered and in pieces, and you can kind of see some of those waves kind of moving in. One of our producers is going to try to reach out, but we're told there's nobody on. Okay, there's nobody on Frying Pan Tower, which is a good thing, obviously.
Yeah, Brad, it's kind of interesting to see if that pole survives. I mean, the flag is one thing, but that pole and the post that's holding it looks like it's taken a pretty good beating already.
Yeah, and you can see, John, just the size of some of those waves that are kind of coming in, and the white caps on that. Definitely kind of puts it in perspective out there, how far in the ocean and what they're seeing. That's what we're going to be seeing here in the coming hours, of course, as we continue to track Florence.
They used to be able to move that camera and point it almost down so you could see the waves crashing on the tower there. I don't know if they're monitoring our broadcast or not. They're moving it around when you started talking about it, so maybe they are.
Yes, well, our producer Amber just reached out to them, and they still do have the ability to move it around and everything, and they kind of moved it whenever we were talking as well.
Yeah, but look at those white caps, though. Look at that surf 34 miles off our coast. That's would not be a pleasant place to be at this hour.
Without a doubt, and the visibility there is basically nothing, as you can see, John. So rough conditions out there.
All right, WECT's Brad Myers in our digital studio. Brad, we'll come back to you when you have more information for us. You know, Fair Bluff really took a pounding in a hurricane that hit now almost 2 years ago, Hurricane Matthew. Kaylee Tracy is in Columbus County, and she has found some people riding out the storm as well. Kaylee?
Hi, John. Yeah, I'm actually in Whiteville right now. We decided to come over here before the storm hits to make sure that we're not driving in any of the wind later. But we were in Fair Bluff earlier talking to Jody Johnson. He actually lost his home and his business to Hurricane Matthew almost 2 years ago. His home is still sitting idle. It has sat there for almost 2 years. Empty and still kind of almost in ruins, he describes it. It flooded there as well. He grew up in Fair Bluff and says the river gives and it takes. It's an asset there. He, along with other residents there, told me that they almost have PTSD from the floods in Hurricane Matthew with the Florence forecast. Take a listen to what he has to say.
I think there's a lot of emotions that you bury, like from the last experience, and you know, it kind of started bringing back a lot of that. You know, there's a lot of moments that I kind of started reliving and going through, and you know, a lot of those thoughts were just kind of, you know, they just resurfaced, and you know, and they're not all the best thoughts, and it's not so much the actual storm, but you know, the aftermath from last time.
And Jody said he will be riding out this storm as well. He has a house now a little further up the road. It is actually on a farm, and it's higher elevation there. So he says he's not as worried, but he will be out there documenting. He's a photographer, took a lot of pictures in Matthew, and he said he wanted to be out there during this storm as well, the aftermath, to take pictures and document for his neighbors. And right now, just to give you a little sense of where we are, step aside, you can kind of see behind me the firefighters here at the Whiteville Fire Department. They are kind of just hanging around getting things ready. John, and the High Point Fire Department has actually just arrived. They are here to help out, and they have kind of just moved in their supplies and their bedding, their pillows, everything like that. They just had a little talk with the Whiteville Fire Department guys about what they'll do when the storm comes, and kind of tag teaming this effort out here in Columbus County. John?
Well, Kaylee, obviously, judging by the scene behind you, pretty calm out there at this point in time. You're really not feeling many of the effects. See your hair kind of blowing. Maybe a breezy day so far, but not really that bad so far in Columbus County.
That's right, John. You can see the breeze. The wind is blowing a little bit here. But actually, when we were in Fair Bluff earlier today, the sun came out. It was misting a little bit. It wasn't raining hard at all yet. The clouds have covered a little, but there's still the sun peeking through a little bit here. The conditions aren't bad at all, as you said. A little windy out here right now, and that's why these guys behind me are getting everything set up while they can. They have a boat that actually one of the Whiteville firefighters, he was saying it is his personal boat. They don't have one with the fire department here in Whiteville, so he brought that in case of afterwards if they need to take that out. And they're just kind of getting everything situated. They're eating a lot here, and they have a lot of food in here, getting ready for what lies ahead.
All right, WECT's Kaylee Tracy in Columbus County. We will check back in with you. Calm day out that way. Conditions are going to deteriorate out in Columbus County and in Bladen County. Already deteriorating along the coastal communities, though, of Pender County. You saw our Surf City cam really showing that surf pounding. The video that was posted by the pier group in Surf City. The Surf City Pier posted to its Facebook page that the pounding waves that the pier is taking there. We showed you video in Carolina Beach earlier of the surf already overwashing some of the rocks more toward the north end. Wrightsville Beach seeing a lot of those heavy surf waves as well, just pounding on the beach. And of course in Brunswick County, you saw that squall that came through. What were you saying, Kelsey? My producer's talking to me? Oh, okay. I thought you were talking to me. She's trying to talk to Gannon in a second. I thought we were talking to me and Eric. We have WECT's Ben Smart is in the Brunswick County area with that mandatory evacuation there and in other coastal areas. People who decided against the warning to stay are relying on planning and preparation. Ben Smart went to a church that has prepared its grounds and is sending out some sounds of hope as the storm draws nearer.
The wind is starting to pick up here in Charlotte, just 2 miles from the coast. At this Episcopal church, they're ringing out the message loud and clear. Faith will not be lost during the storm. In Charlotte, I'm Ben Smart reporting.
Yeah, we were talking about those big waves across the piers. This picture sent in from See It, Snap It, Sent It. Check out these waves in Curry Beach. I mean, they're close to the top of that pier there, and that's kind of going to be what we're seeing along all the beaches moving forward as Florence continues to make its impacts. And we're starting to see those too along the coastal areas. We're talking about Pender County, New Hanover County, even portions of Brunswick County, seeing some of this very heavy rainfall. And also we talked about the potential for some tornadoes. Some of these are spitting up just a little bit, some little rotation in some of these. So we're going to be continuing to watch these cells, these waves, these bands of rain moving in. We'll zoom in on here. You can see some very heavy rainfall near Long Creek, Rocky Point, just a little bit west of Castle Hayne there. Moving south, areas such as Masonboro Island, Silver Lake, really all across coastal areas in Pender County and New Hanover County, seeing very heavy rainfall. This is going to continue to come in bands and waves. So now it's going to start to begin, and it's not going to stop for the next 24, 36, possibly even 48 hours of very heavy downpours. Carolina Beach, we have a crew out there. They're probably seeing some very heavy rain, gusty winds out there as well. Curry Beach, Masonboro Island, all these areas under the gun for very heavy rainfall. We talked about how it's really not going to change moving forward either. So that's what we're going to show you here in the hour-by-hour forecast. You see those streamlines here, that center of low moving closer towards the coast. As we head Friday afternoon, this is stopped 7 a.m. The center of the storm posed to be near Wilmington, or if not around Wilmington, moving again through the area. So all of us right now, those yellow colors, orange colors, red colors, very, very heavy rainfall. It's going to continue to fall. And again, we're already seeing some rivers flooding inland. So we said before, not only coastal areas are going to see significant impacts from flooding and erosion. This is a problem too for areas further inland. So we're talking about lakes, we're talking about rivers. We talked about the storm surge map yesterday. You can go online, you can see the area that you're at, how storm surge can affect you. This same map here, 5 p.m. Friday, not much change. This is going to move very slowly once it does move inland. There's no steering current to really put this thing anywhere, so it's just going to sit and it's going to continue to dump continual rainfall over southeast North Carolina. We'll go again Friday afternoon into Saturday afternoon. Another very heavy wave expected to move through. This red color, these dark red colors, I mean, this really just is not going to be changing over the next few days. We talked about impacts. That's what we focus on. Even though this has downgraded over time, that doesn't really matter. We're going to see impacts of possibly Cat 3, Cat 4 when we're talking about flooding, when we're talking about storm surge. Here's our projected rainfall forecast moving forward. All of our areas shaded there in orange. That indicates potentially 12 to 24 inches of rain, locally higher too in some areas. So we're talking about 1 to 2 feet. Areas further inland of Bladen County, 6 to 12 feet. That's still, regardless, very significant rainfall. So not only is this going to damage structures, this is life-threatening rainfall. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to pick up your car. Not only that, with the heavy winds coming too, the ground already going to be very saturated. So we're talking about trees coming down. We're talking about significant power outages on the way. And we're also getting the graphic together too, talking about the river flooding, John, that you were just mentioning beforehand. So we'll get that graphic together and we'll have those details coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks. A viewer sent us some video here, a picture. He says his dad, O.A. or A.O. McCarley, put railroad spikes in a tree to mark the storm surge from Fran and Floyd. This is at the boat dock in Oyster Bay. That's off Masonboro Sound Road. The Floyd spike is about 5 feet up and the Fran spike about 7. So they're going to wait and see just how the surge from Florence compares to the ones in the past. And we'll have to check back to see how the railroad spikes are checking in and where Florence ranks on that obviously unofficial chart of storm surge in one part of New Hanover County. All right, other parts of North Carolina feeling the impact of the storm as well. We have some video. This in from New Bern, North Carolina, up to our north and east. This is in the downtown New Bern area, it looks like, right down there by the convention center. If you know where this is in the downtown community, already some minor flooding as the river kind of flows over its banks there. This is going to be a testy time as they're going to get hit as well with some of those first bands. That's the thing about this is, the storm is more toward Wilmington off the coast, but it's so big that New Bern and parts of the Outer Banks are going to see some of the impacts as well. WECT's Marissa Hundley had the opportunity earlier to speak with Wilmington's Mayor Bill Saffo. A lot of media organizations have talked to Mayor Saffo about the preparation leading up to the storm and what the city has done. And Marissa got a chance to talk to the mayor about that and what he thinks is going to happen to the city in the next 48 or 72 hours.
I was in a long line to talk to the mayor. He was just talking with Anderson Cooper from CNN. Who else have you talked to?
I've talked to Craig Melvin with NBC, Stephanie Rule with NBC, of course Stephanie Abrams with the Weather Channel, Brian Williams last night, Don Lemon, just about everybody. They're all here. They're all concerned, and they're concerned about what's going to happen here.
And you've been through quite a few hurricanes. You've grown up in this area, but as mayor, how does this coverage compare to past hurricanes?
I personally have never seen coverage like this. I mean, you have almost every major news organization in the country that is here covering this, and they've been on top of it. I've also thanked them also for the amount of information that they have gotten out there to the citizens and to the public, because I believe that the public took this very seriously and heeded what we have been saying from the emergency management folks. So a lot of people have left the area. And what we're hearing from the National Weather Service is 20, 30, up to maybe even 40 inches of rain in some isolated areas. So this is going to be a significant rain event, because this storm is going to be on top of us for about 48 hours. It's a large storm. It's 400 miles wide. So we're going to be feeling the effects of this for days. So, my concern is that, after this storm passes, we're going to have a lot of flooded creeks. We're going to have a lot of flooded roadways. Predominantly where we've had flooding in the past, you're going to see flooding again. And when people may want to try to get out there to drive around, and you see, an area where you think you can get through with your car or your truck, and you're not going to be able to get through it. And we've seen that situation in Matthew 2 years ago, where we lost several people that died trying to get through, heavy standing water. So we're going to see the same thing in those same areas, and we're going to also see a lot of downed trees, a lot of downed power lines. It's going to take some time to get the power back on to this community, but we have Duke Power that is positioning a lot of resources about 100 miles from here in Kinston at the Global Trans Park. So when this storm passes, they'll be bringing in those resources as quickly as possible. And then the other thing that has us concerned is with the amount of people that have moved out of the area. I know a lot of people are going to want to move back into the area as soon as this storm passes to get back to their homes and get back to Wilmington. And some of those creeks and rivers, some of that water goes down. We may not be able to get you back here in a day or 2 days. It may take 2 or 3, 4 days to get back.
And going back to all of the support that you've gotten and coverage, you've gotten the attention of the president. President Trump called you, what, like an hour and a half ago?
He did, and he offered any kind of assistance at the federal level. He said he's been watching the storm. He's been getting updates on the track of the storm. He understands this is a pretty significant event for our community, and he just wanted me to know that anything that he can do as the president and the resources of the federal government are at our disposal, and we appreciate him calling.
What was it like to get a call from the president?
It was good. It was, and I told him that. I says, you usually don't get a call from the President of the United States, but I was in the middle of a press conference there at the New Hanover County executive office there, and calling me. But I told him I appreciated him taking out from his busy schedule to talk to me. Of course, the vice president was there also, but they just wanted me to know that they're watching the situation, they're on top of the situation, and when this thing passes, anything that we need from FEMA, that they're there for us. And I told him I appreciated him calling me and telling and giving us the assurance that the federal government will be there to back us. And we've always had a good relationship with the federal government when it comes to storms and storm events, and it's been a good coordinated effort between the federal government, the state government, and the local governments, everybody working together.
I mean, it's got to be pretty exciting getting a call from the president, but when you think of the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to get a call in the middle of the press conference today. My phone went off.
Your cell phone?
It was my cell phone that went off, and when the cell phone went off, I didn't know who it was,
Well, it might be him again.
and I cut it off, and then I saw it come over again, and I says, "Oh my goodness, somebody's calling me." So I went out to get the call, and it was the White House, and they said the president would like to speak with you, and I was like, "Of course." So, but I appreciate him calling, and I appreciate him his kind words, and also the concerns that he has for the people in this region, in this area.
And you think about the Cape Fear River. Floyd set the record for flooding here, right? What was it, 23 feet?
About 23 feet, and we expect that to be surpassed in this storm, with this storm event, and that's got us all concerned.
And you look over at the marina over here and the pilings, and we think, what, they're about 10 feet high?
Yes, and we just hope that they have been built, or those pilings are long enough that they will keep those floating docks in place, or else those floating docks are going to go over those pilings, and we're going to see a lot of boats and that entire marina over on the other side of the river.
But you were talking about how in Wilmington we have a good situation with the river flooding because there is that barrier of the marshland.
Yeah, we have a tremendous amount of marsh area that extends from basically Wilmington all the way to Leland. So we have a large area where the water can dissipate once it comes downstream, which helps. I'm not saying we're not going to get flooding, because we are going to get flooding, especially in the downtown area, especially around the federal courthouse and Waterfront Park. But it does help to have that large of an area where the water can then expand once it gets here. In other areas, like when you get up around Elizabethtown or Lumberton, Fair Bluff, where the river is very narrow and then it spills over, it has nowhere to go but they're on the sides, and of course a lot of people have built their homes right there, and of course if it exceeds flood stages, that's where we get a lot of the flooding. I also got a call from also the governor's office, as well as Senator Tillis, telling us that anything that they could do to help us down here, they would definitely be here for us. So I appreciate everybody coming together to give us the help that we're going to need when this thing is finally gone.
And of course it's hard to tell what exactly is going to happen with downtown, but what do you expect it to look like in a few days?
Well, hopefully, we're going to get through this thing and we're going to be okay. We've been through a lot of hurricanes, and I've lived here all my life, and we've seen quite a few of them. I think downtown will be okay, but we're going to have flooding. There's no doubt about it. We're going to have trees that are going to come down. We're going to have power possibly out for a week, maybe even 10 days. We're going to have damage to roofs and buildings, and there's no doubt about it. With the winds even at 105 to 110, maybe a gust up to 120, we're going to have damage. We just hope it's minimal. I think everybody is prepared. I think the citizens are doing a phenomenal job in getting prepared. And so we're going to ride this thing out, and when it's over, we'll get out here and assess what the damages look like, and then we'll get to work to fix it as quickly as possible.
And how do you see the difference in preparations for this storm versus storms past?
Well, with every storm we learn something, and obviously with our emergency management teams, they evaluate the changes that need to be done and how we work together and how we better coordinate our efforts. So I see that in the emergency operations centers, everybody's sitting at the table. As the information is given to us, we know where it goes, who's going to handle it, what teams are where. We have pre-positioned teams around the community to go out to assess the damage almost immediately. We have constant communication with our friends in Washington and our friends in Raleigh. So the coordinated effort as to how we work together is changed over time and over the years, and I'm sure we'll learn something when this storm passes that we didn't think about, that we didn't think about at the time. But you know, I think just the communication, the folks like you, the folks in the media, the information that you folks get out to the community is invaluable. I mean, we can't say enough, and thank you enough for all of the information that you get out there, because I think people listen and hear, and then get that information and then start taking the adequate measures to protect their home and their lives and get out of harm's way. So, I know this is a bad event and it's a tough event for our community, but it also shows the greatness of a community and the citizens coming together, helping one another out. Somebody's out of town, taking care of somebody's house, taking care of somebody's pet, bringing somebody into their home. This is you see the goodness in people in events like this, and the politics and junk go away, and then we just become human beings and we take care of each other. And that's the beautiful part of it, if there is a beautiful part to be said about this.
And I don't know if you keep up with the Wilmington Facebook page, but I just saw a post on there about how somebody in Houston during Harvey got a box of, I think, toiletries from somebody in Wilmington, and he posted a picture of that box and said, like, you were there for us then, we're going to be there for you now.
And that's, I can't tell you how many people from around the country are saying, what do you need? We want to come in and help. Plus the fact is that when there are disasters in other parts of the country, whether it be in Florida or be in Texas or wherever San Juan, Puerto Rico, this state, this community also gives something back and also gets out there and works hard to help those communities. So I think it's great to see that kind of camaraderie as a nation, and it's also great to see people just coming together and working together for the betterment of mankind. It's a great story to see. And talking to a lot of the network folks here, that's what they say about this community, is how we're working together, and really this is a good coordinated effort, and we're doing the best we can.
The mayor said it best. Love this community, and he is so right. All right, we're going to go back now to Ben Smart, who is still in Charlotte. He's on a dock where the Intracoastal Waterway meets the river. How's it going?
Hey, Fran, really the story right now where we are is the light wind picking up to sort of a medium type wind. It's not raining here right now. You'll notice I'm not wearing rain gear, but take a look over here. We're on a dock right now that's kind of where the Charlotte River meets the Intracoastal Waterway. And this is seriously, it's picturesque right now, but there are some dark storm clouds coming in. We just got some information from meteorologist Gannon Medwick pointing out that rivers will flood very severely, and this could be a life-threatening situation for folks on here. So the dock we're standing on, once Florence hits, will likely be underwater. But really, we're seeing just wind out here right now. The water is, pretty calm at this time, but just looking out here at the Charlotte River, this snakes up all the way through into the town and will likely flood over once the storm gets in here and once those tropical storm hurricane force winds get in here and the storm surge really picks up. So if you're out there right now and you're watching us and you're in Charlotte, be advised that if you're near this river, it's going to be a life-threatening situation. John and Fran.
All right, thanks so much for that report, Ben. We will check back in with you shortly. We're going to go now to Brad Myers, who is in our digital studio, and he has someone on the phone with him. Brad?
Yeah, Fran, we've been reporting that Surf City and really all of Topsail is the first to feel Florence's wrath. Right now with me live, I have Ashley Loftus. She is the Surf City Town Manager. Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Sure thing.
If you can, just kind of tell us what you're seeing. I'm going to call up the Surf City weather cam there, and obviously strong winds and that surf is in. What are you guys dealing with right now?
Well, the rain is starting to come down. The wind is definitely picking back up. The ocean is angry, that is for sure. The waves are probably about 15 feet high, brushing just underneath the pier. So things are definitely ramping up.
What is, I guess, your number one concern right now as the storm's coming in, knowing that it's, going to dump a lot of rain and everything? Ashley, are you there?
Yes, go ahead. I can hear you now.
Okay. We were just wondering, what is your biggest concern right now, early on with this storm just now hitting?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. If you can, just tell us the number one concern right now with this storm just now hitting.
Our number one concern is obviously the storm surge that's coming over, and we have very few residents that are left on the island, but making sure that they are staying inside and that they are safe.
Okay, we're going to pull up some of your pictures that you've posted to Facebook. For those people who are staying on the island, do you have any idea how many that stayed?
We have approximately 30, 35 people, and we have made contact with all of them.
Okay, and I guess what's just kind of a sit and wait and see what the storm may bring?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
I guess it's just kind of a sit and wait kind of deal where, you will just have to deal with the impacts as they kind of come in?
Yes, exactly. We're just sitting, waiting, just waiting it out.
All right. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. We will check back with you guys here shortly. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Not a problem.
All right. Now we're going to go to meteorologist Eric Davis in the First Alert Center.
Yeah, one of my good friends who's the hydrologist expert over at the National Weather Service really putting out a very sobering statement here just a little while ago. This is about the potential flooding situation with, of course, Hurricane Florence, and he makes no bones about it. It says this is a life-threatening situation. Flooding may be worse by elevated tides due to storm surge working into creeks and streams, limiting those creeks and streams' ability to handle runoff, meaning the creeks and streams may actually back up and cause a lot of maybe even unexpected flooding even beyond and above what we already know is going to be happening. Flooding may also be enhanced by debris clogging up streams and creeks. Remember, there's going to be so much water with this particular storm. The water volume is just going to be absolutely staggering. And maybe most sobering of all, significant flooding is likely to be observed in areas that have not, let me repeat this, significant flooding is likely to be observed in areas that have not experienced flooding in the past, possibly even in areas that are not in the flood zone. Very sobering news right now from the National Weather Service office in Wilmington. And here's some more sobering statistics as well. We've gotten some of the latest projections on river levels. Just getting this in right now. And take a look at this. This is the Northeast Cape Fear River in Burgaw. Remember, the advanced stage is 8 foot. The flood stage is 10 feet. Look at this. Right now, the river 2.8 feet. So it's actually running pretty low right now. Check this out. By Tuesday, it is supposed to crest at 24 feet. The record crest for the Northeast Cape Fear River, 22.5 feet. So we now think we're going to see a record crest, and it's going to be major, major flooding. So our impact zone right now, obviously the river level very low right now, but we expect a very dangerous situation. It is going to be a high impact event, a very dangerous and maybe even record setting event along the Northeast Cape Fear River in Burgaw. And again, just one of the many aspects that we're going to have. Of course, in the short term, we got to worry about the flooding from the rain. We got to worry about the flooding from the storm surge, but eventually all of this water is going to work its way into a lot of our area rivers, and some of the river flooding will be absolutely staggering. How about the Lumber River? A little bit further inland, 6.6 feet, the current stage there, 19.2 feet. And here we are expecting moderate to major impacts here as well. The crest on that one is likely to be on Sunday at 19.2 feet. So again, huge rise in the river level at the Lumber River in Lumberton. How about the Cape Fear River in Elizabethtown? 14.3. It's expected to rise 29.6 feet. Not as much rain expected maybe in Bladen counties and points a little bit further to the north upstream of where the water would be coming from. So maybe not quite as much significant impact, but still a very significant issue with the Northeast Cape Fear River. All right, live view right now. This is a look at Surf City from our camera, and you can see that hurricane flag really blowing around out there. The sea is getting angrier and angrier as Florence draws closer and closer to the coastline, and we continue to see some of the initial rain bands. Very intense rain band right now just to the west of of Wilmington. It looks like around the Leland area, right along Highway 17, and you can see that there's also some shower activity currently along Highway 421. Boiling Spring Lake's really getting ratcheted right now, and we're also going to have to watch out. We've seen some indications of some of these storms maybe trying to have a little bit of spin up. We haven't really had a tornado situation, but keep in mind that is going to be at least a possibility that some of these rain bands here can have a little bit of spin. You can get a very quick spin up tornado, so that is another hazard that we have to be mindful of. And also around Bald Head Island, you can see some pretty heavy rain there as well. We're also getting a real detailed look at some of the computer models forecasts, and again, some of the rainfall totals that we see from this could be quite staggering. I think my numbers aren't updating, but this particular model was actually showing, I don't know why the numbers are not updating, was actually showing over 25 inches of rain here in Wilmington. So again, all that water, initially the storm surge, the freshwater flooding, and working its way into rivers is just going to be a multifaceted, dangerous situation. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much. And you know, we've been checking with different areas, and we're seeing that the storm is now starting to show its way. And so we're going to check in with Chelsea Donovan, who is at the north end of Carolina Beach. So, Chelsea, we've been checking in with Ben Smart and others across our viewing area. We can see where the winds are picking up. We can see the white caps. How's it looking at Carolina Beach?
Yeah, it's really starting to get very hairy, very dicey out here at Carolina Beach. I'm at the farthest north end, just right off the Carolina Beach fishing pier on the north end here. Take a look around here, I've just got to show you these incredible waves. This is the storm surge all of our meteorologists have been talking about. 10 to 15 foot swells coming in right now. Look at it, it's coming up onto the rocks here, as you can see. This is just incredible. This pier was built back in the late 1940s. It's 700 feet jetting out into the Atlantic Ocean. Part of that, the end part there, ripped apart during Hurricane Fran in the late 1990s. But this is the situation here. You can see as Kristen's shooting, I mean, we're in probably about 2 feet of water here. Definitely not a situation that you want to be out in at this time. Most of these homes here, you can tell, boarded up behind me. The north end, no stranger to flooding. We could not go down to Canal Drive. We had to stop at a certain point, sailfish, and make a right onto Carolina Beach Avenue because it was just too dicey. Canal Avenue, as you know, and here's that storm surge again. This is exactly why the town of Carolina Beach has enacted that 24-hour curfew, because there's absolutely no reason for folks to be on the beach. This is just too incredibly dangerous. This storm surge really starting to rear its ugly head here now. Thank God for these rocks that are in this area right now. This is why they've been put into place. But I just want to turn your attention to the seas. I mean, if Kristen, if we can pan out there, this is an incredible situation here. 10 to 15 foot seas. You know, we're expecting probably about 20 inches of rain, according to Colin Hackman, who I'm shacking up with this week down here. And of course, we're just waiting. This is kind of the beginning stages, so you can tell, man, and high tide was at 11:30, so, you know, we're expecting that to change. I'm hoping you can hear me, John and Fran. We're also starting to get a nice couple good pelts of rain. Rain's coming down pretty good here. A little bit windy, but again, this is still the early stages, and you can see exactly what it's doing here, pounding against the rocks here on the north end.
Chelsea, are you seeing anybody else down there? Are you like the only one down there? Are there anybody else doing any wave watching?
Not a soul in sight. Earlier when Colin Hackman was down here, we showed some video in our last hit of people taking pictures, kind of documenting the situation. Of course, everybody kind of wants to know what's going to happen with this pier because it's fallen victim on the end a couple decades ago with Hurricane Fran. And so, yes, there were some folks taking some pictures at that time, but nobody seems to be out here now, and that's a good sign. That's exactly why Carolina Beach and Curry Beach here on Pleasure Island have enacted that 24-hour curfew. But yeah, things are starting to get a little hairier, a little dicey here, and this is really just the beginning.
Well, it is kind of frightening to look at that, to know that it's just going to intensify. Yeah, right. Just getting started.
Chelsea, you guys be careful down that way. Again, Chelsea talking about how it's deserted down there. Not too many other people down there at all. There's also not many people along the boardwalk in Myrtle Beach. Take a look at this.
Wow, there are folks there, but just a few taking pictures, and chances are this was recorded just a short time ago. Chances are they're making their way inland because, I mean,
rough surf, yeah.
There's the picture of things to come. So again, looking at folks that are, you know, curious. They want to know what it's like before the storm, and that always happens, but now is the time that folks need to be making their way indoors, and they need to stay there until this storm passes.
And the impacts will head down toward Myrtle Beach in South Carolina in due time, but the Outer Banks of North Carolina really have already started feeling the effects. This is Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and the pier there. Take a look at the surf just churning and battering that pier in North Carolina's Outer Banks. This is video courtesy of Surfline. So again, the heavy surf going on all along North Carolina's coast.
All right, let's check in now with Kelly McGlynn.
Yeah, guys, the radars, you can really see the outer bands of Florence continuing to make its way into our coastal areas. Very heavy rainfall, as Chelsea was showing you there in Carolina Beach. All this storm surge starting to make its way inland. And not only storm surge, rainfall is going to be a significant problem moving forward. Already seeing moderate to very heavy rainfall in areas like Bolivia, Boiling Springs Lake area, Town Creek area. And also, too, we mentioned this before, the potential for an isolated spin-up tornado is going to be possible. And that's kind of what we've been seeing. It's there scan, then it's not there. So we're going to be watching this threat very closely over the next couple of hours, because this is going to be the trend moving forward tonight. And really for the next couple of days too, we could even have some tornado potential on the backside of this system as it continues to move across southeast North Carolina. So we'll talk about the rainfall potential moving forward the next couple of days. Again, this is going to continue to come down in buckets, really wave after wave, band after band. All of our area mostly shaded in that orange color, so indicating around 12 to 24 inches of rainfall. So that's 1 to 2 feet, and even locally higher amounts are possible too, depending on where those bands do set up. So again, this is a life-threatening event, and especially too, as Eric just talked about, the river flooding is going to be a problem as well. So not only coastal areas will have the problem for storm surge, that continues to push inland also. And as Chelsea was talking about before, the storm surge already coming in, those areas is shaded in red, so those are our east-facing beaches. We're talking about New Hanover County, Pender County, could see 8 feet of storm surge, and even higher in some spots. South-facing beaches around 4 to 8 feet. So again, even though the category strength of the hurricane has decreased, we're still keeping our impacts the same. So the impacts are going to be significant, and not only to structural areas, but also life-threatening injuries as well.
All right, thanks so much, Kelly. And one of the things that I heard Eric say a little while ago is that folks are going to experience some flooding in areas that are not accustomed to flooding, and that is concerning. Here's something else. This is about the time that we will hear from people who made the decision to stay home, who are second-guessing that decision.
And regretting it, yeah,
yes.
You're right, yeah.
Brad Myers has someone on the phone now. He's in our digital studio. So curious to know who you're talking to and how they're feeling about their decision to stay home, Brad.
Well, friend, you reached out on our WECT community voice page, which we highly encourage our viewers to join. That way you can be part of this conversation. We can share video, we can share pictures, and just kind of tell your story of what you're seeing. One of those people that Fran was able to get in touch with is Megan Avery. She lives in the Rocky Point area, Woodpecker Parkway, which is just off of 421. Megan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. What are you seeing right now?
I am seeing some pretty strong winds. It has rained several times, but right now the trees are just going back and forth really strong, and it's really dark and cloudy this way, and the winds are picking up. But other than that, it looks like it's going to come down really soon.
All right, I want to show viewers approximately where you're located here. This is Topsail Island here, and this is right about that area of Rocky Point where you are. Why did you make the decision to stay?
I've been through hurricanes, and I just prayed this one wouldn't be bad. And I didn't want to leave because the whole point of when you leave, it's going to be hard to get back. And if you're prepared, I feel like if it's not going to be deadly, stay. I wanted to stay. I didn't want to leave my home. I love it here, and we were prepared. So I just feel like it was the best decision to stay.
Did you have a lot of friends and family that left, or did they stay as well?
I worked with a lot of people who said they wanted to stay, and then there was a few that said they were going to leave because they lived more on the water. But here, we're not to like a big flood-prone area, so hopefully with this amount of rain, it won't be as catastrophic as it's going to seem.
What is your biggest concern then as you're going to just ride this out?
Probably the loss of power for the 7 to 10 days, if not longer. That's kind of what's going to be the most frightening, is just the constant loss of power, no hot water. But that's kind of the part of roughing it out.
Speaking of roughing it out, what kind of supplies do you have to kind of, make it last through, if it is 7 days?
Probably like 200 bottles of water, 4 big Yeti coolers full of ice, a whole pantry full of soups and things like that, just the necessities of not having electricity, what you would need without it.
Have
Candles,
you talked to some
flashlights.
Have you talked to some of your neighbors? And if so, what's kind of their psyche as they get ready to go through the worst of it?
A few of my neighbors have left, but the other ones that have chose to stay have done the boarding of their windows. They have done like we've done, followed our hurricane prepare checklist. We've made sure that our cars are not underneath trees, and we've pretty much got candles, propane, the things that you need if you're going to stay to rough it out.
Speaking of trees, that tree behind you looks like it's moving pretty well now as those winds pick up. How close is that to your house, and is that a concern?
From what I heard, it's an oak tree, and oak trees don't tip over. They just come out of the ground. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't tip over. But it is fairly close, yes.
Have you ever been through storms? And if so, what are some of the other storms that you've kind of been through?
I experienced the one in 1999, and then the one in 2001. And then Matthew was the most recent one that we stuck out here.
And what effects did you see after Matthew?
Matthew was a lot of water, a lot of rain, a lot of water. It wasn't as bad as we thought, but we did lose power for a good 5 to 7 days.
We've been looking at, and I'm getting ready to call up the Surf City webcam right now, and it looks like, they're definitely getting hit with some of those winds and everything like that. Do you yourself head to the coastal areas? And if so, is there anything in particular that you're worried about after this storm rolls through?
I do. I work in Wilmington, and I work close to the beachy area, so I'm just fearful for those businesses. I'm fearful for the town itself because I love Wilmington. It's my home away from home, and I'm just hoping that we can make it through this.
Again, Megan Avery, sticking it out there in Rocky Point. We wish you the best. You guys stay safe, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. You too.
John Fran, we're going to continue to reach out to folks, and we highly encourage them. If you have Skype, that's usually the easiest for us to be able to talk. Reach out to us on WECT, and we're looking for you as well. Again, go to the WECT Community Voice page, and hopefully we can get live interviews with you guys so we can see what you guys are showing. John Fran?
All right, thanks so much, and thank you, Megan Avery, for talking with us. She was actually very good describing her situation, and she was willing and ready and able to go on television via Skype, and we, as Brad said, we invite you to do the same thing. Earlier I said just private message me on my Facebook page. Let's rework that. And if you have
inundated, are you?
Well, you know, I have to do this and that, and it was getting overwhelming. So anyway, if you want to do that, if you want to Skype, if you want to do a telephone interview, or if you want to Facebook, please email the newsroom and let us know that you are willing and able, and then share your Skype information as well.
Newsroom at WECT.com is the email address, or again, the WECT Community Voice page. It's a good way of getting in touch with not only us, but other members of the staff as well.
Yes. All right, so what are we doing here? We've got heavy rains now moving in on us.
Atlantic Beach. Oh, we're going to talk to Kaylee. Kaylee is in Columbus County, and she is talking to Hal Lauder, emergency manager in the city of Whiteville, talking about how things are up there in the Columbus County community. Have things gotten any worse up there, Kaylee, or still kind of a breezy day?
Yeah, hey, John and Fran. There's still just a breeze. No other developments since we talked to you last as far as the weather goes. The sun's still kind of peeking through the clouds a teensy bit here. But Hal Lauder, emergency manager in Whiteville, as you just said, he's going to talk a little bit about the High Point Fire Department crew just came in not too long ago. So you can just touch on that and why you guys brought them in.
Sure. We put in a request through North Carolina Emergency Management. We learned from Matthew that after several days of 24-hour operations, our guys are getting beat up pretty bad. So we expect to need those guys. So they're going to fill in and give us basically twice the manpower than we have now. And so they'll be assigned here with our guys and responding just as if they're our fire department.
And how many total do you have now, first responders here, including the High Point guys?
I have 4 engine companies right now, which are fully staffed, and I apologize, but I think there's 4 on each engine company. But I do have 4 engine companies and our chief and then High Point's battalion chief, so that even gave us an extra level of a command vehicle as well.
And I know that one of your guys actually brought his own personal boat in. He was talking in there earlier to kind of help out afterwards. He said, I don't care what happens to it. I wanted to bring this out because we don't have one here, and I wanted to help with that. So what does that mean to have your guys bringing their own personal stuff for potential flooding and stuff after this hurricane?
I was just telling somebody in one of the shelters a minute ago that we're going to be very good buddies and community members here in just a little bit, and that's the community spirit, and that's one of the things. We hadn't got started yet, and so taking that community spirit, we need a boat, so one of our guys says, I've got one.
And that community spirit as well. Photographer Colby and I were in here chatting with the guys from High Point and your guys from Whiteville here. They're all joking around right now. They're getting all the food they can while they're at it. There's some pretty good cake in there that they're sharing. Yeah. But that's what you're saying. You're getting ready. You're just getting, yeah, you got some sweets too. But you're all getting ready right now as far as prep, and then the real work is going to come in. Later.
Well, we're ready, and you know, that's the firefighter thing. I mean, it's a stress reliever for these guys. They're ready when this kicks off. It'll be deadpan serious stuff, and so you know, we got to be here anyway. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy our jobs. Let's enjoy life, and then the adrenaline's going to keep kicking in here in a little bit and be wide open. So they're ready.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to that prep, but for now, I'm going to toss it back to you, John and Fran, in the studio.
Sounds like he's going to get back to that cake, and Kaylee is too. Hey, we understand what that's like. You know, there's something about a hurricane and food that just go hand in hand. Yeah. And just got to say, Edwin Lake, if you are watching, that chili, man, oh my goodness.
Both kind of
delicious.
Took a couple of minutes to grab a quick bite to eat here. We both had a big old bowl of Edwin's chili, and whew.
Don't say I had a big bowl, because I'm going back for seconds.
All right. Well, all right. I had a big bowl. You had a moderate bowl. How's that?
A little teeny tiny bowl. I need more.
All right, let's get over to meteorologist Jesslyn Florence for an update. Jess?
Yeah, guys, so we've been seeing those scattered showers throughout the last couple of hours, but now we're starting to see those really big rain bands starting to make their way in. You can see the yellows, the dark greens, the greens. It's just a lot and a lot. And you can see actually this little cell right here off in Oak Island, definitely a stronger cell right now. We're seeing very heavy winds, very heavy rain, and this is going to be the situation as we go throughout the next couple of hours and even the next couple of days. We've been saying this is going to be a very long event as we go throughout the next couple of days, and it's really not going to stop here in the next couple of days. But you can see we're expected anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. So you can see 24, or actually the next 48 hours really. So 24 inches expected here in Wilmington, and that's really not going to continue. That's going to continue the next couple of days. It's not going to stop. We're just going to be seeing inches, even feet of rain expected, 12 to 24 plus inches. So the low visibility, the low land flooding, the long-term river implications not yet completely known, but we are going to see major flooding in these rivers. So just do be mindful of that. This is going to be a very significant event for the next several days. And you can see we're already seeing those rain bands make their way in. We're going to be seeing the damaging wind, the storm surge, even the possibility of tornadoes. I showed that stronger cell just off in about the Oak Island area. So yeah, we're going to be seeing these small little spin up tornadoes here once in a while. So just make sure that you're following us. We're going to be here continuing to coverage this storm as it continues, but just make sure that you know that it's coming, it's here, and it's going to be the next couple of days. So, but for right now, I'm going to toss it back to the desk, and we're going to toss it over to Chelsea.
All right, we are going to go back to Chelsea and see how things are at Carolina Beach, because when we looked in earlier, it looked like a storm was moving in, and now, well, what's the latest, Chelsea?
Fran, things aren't looking good here down at Carolina Beach. I'm on the farthest northern point. If you're familiar, this is the Carolina Beach North Fishing Pier, 700 feet in length. No need for me to even say anything. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Look at those waves, looking about 15 to 20 feet high, slamming into the pylons down here. This is right before you get to Freeman Park, which is closed. And Fran, we are getting some major wind gusts. Rain definitely coming down. This is Hurricane Florence. These are the outer bands coming ashore here in Carolina Beach. You can see these rocks that have been put here over the years. This is to prevent that storm surge where we could possibly see that 6 to 9 feet coming ashore here, possibly in addition with 20 inches of rain. As we made our way down here, the nice cop that's been escorting us, part of the road is already washed out here on Carolina Beach Avenue North. And so this is not a place where you need to be out at this time driving around. You don't need to be out at all. Our duty here just to show you the pictures here. One of the concerns with this storm is the Carolina Beach North Fishing Pier, because that farthest end, part of that was crushed, taken apart in Hurricane Fran. So that's the concern here. As you can see, those waves just slamming in. The swell here, Fran and John, just absolutely unbelievable. And this is the threat. This is one of those, like Eric and Gannon, one of the biggest, deadliest problems in hurricane is not the wind, folks. It's the storm surge. And that's why many of the houses here have been boarded up behind me. As you saw just a few minutes ago when we were down on the water, a little bit of a precarious situation. So we kind of brought ourselves to higher ground, because that storm surge will knock you straight off your feet, Fran. So of course, this is Florence as she's coming ashore, ghost town here, and that's exactly why Carolina Beach has enacted that 24-hour curfew here on Pleasure Island.
Chelsea, we're seeing you're getting some more of those wind gusts, though. I see it almost being more difficult to stand your ground.
Yeah, every few minutes we're getting a really nice, good gust. The rain obviously coming in, as you can imagine. These are the outer bands coming forward. And we're in an end that is dicey here in Carolina Beach because it's so prone to flooding. Look here, as you can see, this is the sand from the ocean here in Carolina Beach that is already washed ashore, making its way up. This is Carolina Beach Avenue North and Salt Marsh. So this is already that overwash that has made its way into the area here. And so you can imagine, gosh, this is the early stages, what this is going to be like in just a matter of hours when we're really getting that heavy rain and wind and those gusts. This storm surge really could be devastating to this area, this north end of the island.
All right, Chelsea, and as she mentioned, the Carolina Beach Fishing Pier, of course, a major concern because of Fran, and then there's the riggings, the condos in that vicinity on Pleasure Island. Yes, so major concern there. And then she talked about storm surge, and that is a big issue with this storm.
That's what officials have been talking about all week long, even as the wind strength has gone down in this storm. They have talked about potentially Hazel-esque storm surge with this one. And WECT's Brad Myers is in our digital studio trying to explain a little bit more about storm surge itself. Brad?
Yeah, exactly, guys. And, you know, even back in June 1st, the start of hurricane season, we were pointing out this is usually the deadliest part of any hurricane. Half of all deaths occurred because of flooding. And that's why we want to show you this is a website that we're monitoring, and that it might not hurt if you have power through the storm for you to monitor as well. This is the National Hurricane Center, and it is potential storm surge flooding. So you can kind of see this is the North Carolina coast. As you can tell up here, right around the Outer Banks and everything, they're starting to see that. Now the blue is 1 foot plus of storm surge. Yellow goes 3 feet, and then the real colors you need to worry about, orange and red. That's 6 feet and 9 feet above ground. That is very dangerous, obviously, for those coastal areas. We're going to zoom in here to where Chelsea was there in Carolina Beach. And let's scroll right down the coast here. You see those yellows right there where Chelsea is. So it's already above 3 feet. Again, this is the latest estimates from the folks at the National Hurricane Center. So very dangerous there along the Carolina Beach shore for storm surge. We're going to work our way up to Wrightsville now. That's where you start to see some of those orange colors. Again, orange, we'll scroll down here, that is 6 feet above ground. And then if you kind of go even further up the coast, up here to even Topsail, you're seeing a lot of the yellows, the oranges. That's what we're going to monitor. It's not just the coast, though. You have to keep that in mind. Storm surge will also push up through here in the Cape Fear River, up here to some of the other tributaries and some of the other streams in that area. You see, we're already starting to see the blues. And check this out. Over here in Brunswick County, close to River Road, just outside of Leland, on your way down to Southport, there are already yellows there. So we cannot stress enough. This is very dangerous, and it's only going to get worse as this storm just kind of hangs out and continues to dump all sorts of rain on us. But again, if you want to check this out, this is the National Hurricane Center and their potential storm surge flooding map. You can check it out. You can kind of find out where your area is to kind of get a sense of what that storm surge could mean for you. Guys, of course, we're going to continue to monitor this, and we'll let you know once we start hitting some of those rough levels, some of the reds and everything. We will pass that along and make sure that you know, because, again, you have to make sure that if you're going to see the storm surge, that you have some way out to get out. But for now, we're going to toss things back to meteorologist Eric Davis there in the First Alert Weather Center.
Yeah, good explanation there, Brad. And we just cannot emphasize enough how localized an event. That's one of the challenges with storm surge. It's a very localized event, and really, it's important to note that storm surge is not just a coastal phenomenon. You can get storm surge off the Cape Fear River. You can get, and you probably almost surely will get storm surge from bodies of water that are connected to the intercoastal waterway, and it can be a very dangerous and localized situation. So we really encourage you to make sure you're checking those maps and know what your situation is in your locality. Live view, Surf City. Boy, that hurricane flag continuing to blow. The conditions continuing to worsen and worsen in Surf City as that center of the storm continues to draw closer to our coast. Now, granted, of course, as we all know, Hurricane Florence is slowing down at this point. And of course, by the time it gets very close to our coastline, especially later tonight, and that's about when we think the approach is going to be towards our coastline. It's going to be later tonight. It's going to basically slow to a crawl. So this is the situation we're looking at right now. We have a storm right now that if you measured it, basically, if you measure the entire diameter of the storm, and you're not supposed to turn it back to the camera, it's about 400 miles in diameter. We have a storm that could be moving at about 3, 4, 5 miles per hour. This is why the storm is going to be such a grind. It is going to be hour after hour after hour. Now remember, as we head through time, this is the map right now. Look what's going to happen here as we advance the map to about 10 a.m. on Friday. You can see the center of the storm right on our doorstep. And remember, just to the north of the center, that's where you've got that's where you have all that water pushing right into the coastline. And as Gannon said so well, this is going to be basically a T-bone crash of the storm right into our coastline. So don't let the fact that this is a Category 2 storm fool you. remember, at one point it was a Category 4 storm, and that water's got to go somewhere. And the wind field, of course, is expanded out, so the storm surge is also going to extend much further to the north because of the size of this storm as well. And eventually, of course, the storm will start to move more towards the south and southwest, and eventually the storm surge, which will probably start off in North Topsail Beach and Surf City, will slowly but surely work its way into the New Hanover coast, the county coastline, Wrightsville Beach, eventually Carolina Beach, down towards Curie Beach as well. You can see by 5 a.m. Saturday, the storm is still potentially on our doorstep. We're still getting battered by the eye wall of the storm. It's just going to be hour after hour. Not to mention, of course, not only the storm surge is going to be so bad, you're going to throw in 1 to 2 feet of rainfall with this, and we're just talking about a catastrophic situation in terms of the flooding. Oh yeah, and don't forget, we're going to have hour after hour too of tropical storm force and at times hurricane force winds on top of all of this. A lot of trees are not going to be able to withstand this. We will have trees coming down. We will have power lines coming down. We are going to have issues on our roadways for quite a while, and probably a lot of these roads, because of all this rain that we're going to see in the storm surge, will be impassable for quite some time. So make no mistake about it, this is going to be a very bad storm, and of course eventually it will work its way off into more of a west or southwesterly direction. This is actually one of the newer runs of the GFS model, a little bit further to the north than some of the other models runs we've seen. Most of the other models have it going a little more towards the south, but regardless, it's going to take a long time to get out of here, whichever direction it goes. Even by Sunday, storm's kind of finally moving to the west, but still we have that onshore flow. Yes, it won't be as intense as what we'll be seeing the next couple of days, but you get the general idea. We're going to have to keep the chances of rain in the forecast right on through Sunday, so it might be Sunday, maybe even Monday or Tuesday before crews are going to be able to get out here and really start to assess the damage, and then even after that it may take quite some time. So just hang in there, folks. This is going to be a long haul with this particular storm. And of course the surge we've talked about, highest on the east-facing beaches because of the hurricane slamming in, the direct effects, and Brunswick County, of course, 4 to 8 foot storm surge. So just such a dangerous storm from both storm surge and water perspective.
Well, and we have had questions on the WECT Community Voice page about storm surge. Meteorologists know what they mean. We've experienced hurricanes many times before, so we're familiar with the term, but a lot of people don't know what a storm surge means.
Literally, it's all the water that the storm is bringing along, and it's coming on land, and the angle of this storm being the way it's coming in and just rushing it to all those east-facing beaches is what's creating all the impetus. You know, when a storm comes from the south, it may bring it along with it, but the south-facing beaches are the ones that are at most risk. Then these are all the east-facing beaches just coming around, just beating on it because it's coming this way. The winds are coming this way at the same time.
Of course, all eyes on Hurricane Florence. NBC, of course, is closely watching this with reporters all in the area. Lester Holt is even here. A special report has been filed on Hurricane Florence.
This is an NBC News special report. Hurricane Florence. Here's Lester Holt.
As we come on the air with the latest on Hurricane Florence. It's now a Category 2 storm and just beginning to make its presence felt up and down the coast. The winds have picked up, the rain has begun, and the potentially catastrophic storm surge, a massive wall of water, is expected in the coming hours. As many as 1 million people have evacuated inland to higher ground, but many have stayed behind to take their chances against what is expected to be a very dangerous next several days. Al Roker has been tracking Florence every step of the way. He has the very latest on what's in store. Al?
Well, Lester, this storm's still dangerous, even though at a Category 2. Don't pay attention to that because the storm surge is still going to be powerful. 105 miles east-southeast of Wilmington, 105-mile-per-hour winds, and it's moving west. It's slowed down now west-northwest at 5 miles per hour. At that rate, it brings it right on shore near where you are, Lester, Wilmington, at about a Category 2. 8 a.m. Friday, then continues on and makes its way on up into South Carolina and eventually making its way further up into the Ohio River Valley, but causing major problems. Here's what we're looking for. Extreme winds. Starting late tonight, going into tomorrow morning, we'll see wind gusts of 104 miles per hour. The storm surge, what you talked about, 9 to 13 feet in the central part of the North Carolina coast, but anywhere from 2 feet to 6 feet all the way along the coast. And rainfall is going to be unprecedented. We're looking at a flood threat into early next week with anywhere from 10 to 20 inches of rain from Myrtle Beach all the way up to Cape Hatteras. And again, with upwards of 3 feet of rain, this is going to be a flood event that we talk about going into next week. Lester?
All right, Al Roker, thank you. NBC's Gotti Schwartz is at Radio Island, North Carolina. It's about 200 miles up the coast from where we are. Let's go to him.
Yeah, Lester, as bad as these look, these are only tropical storm force winds. The worst winds we're expecting to come overnight. We're talking about those hurricane force winds 100 miles an hour. Plus, over there is the town of Beaufort, North Carolina. They are expecting a storm surge, unprecedented levels, 7.5 feet. The last time they had a catastrophic storm was back in the 1950s, and that one did incredible amounts of damage. Lester, back to you.
Gotti Schwartz, thank you. NBC's Kerry Sanders a few miles south of us in Carolina Beach. What's it like there, Kerry?
Well, the wind is picking up. It's not dramatic yet. The rain has been blowing here. I'm holding a wind speed monitor right now so we can get sort of real-time readings at points where there's hardly any wind, and then at other moments it picks up and starts blowing like it's doing right now. The real concern, of course, is that the wind right now coming from the west and blowing from a little bit from the north will eventually come around and come off the east, and that will cause the Atlantic Ocean, which you can see just beyond me here. And if you look at the Atlantic Ocean, you can see how furious it is. Well, that's where the storm surge will come in. Way out there, about 60 miles out, is what's known as the continental shelf. That's where it goes from about 5,000 feet up to 120 feet. And then it gets more shallow and more shallow as it gets closer to shore. And all the water that's building up in that storm surge makes its way here to shore. And that's where they're expecting a storm surge that could be upwards of 13 feet. Lester?
All right, Kerry Sanders, it is getting uglier by the minute in this part of the country. We have coverage teams positioned across the region as we continue to follow the storm. I'll be back with the very latest tonight on NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Lester Holt, NBC News in Wilmington, North Carolina.
All right, you just heard that special report, of course, from Lester Holt. You can see right now in Surf City, we saw that camera just a few minutes ago. The conditions continuing to deteriorate across southeastern North Carolina. And, of course, the winds picking up. I was just checking in on some of the winds here, and they are definitely getting a little bit stronger. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and move on down here a little bit on my rundown. I want to take a look at some of the wind gusts here taking place offshore. As you can see, Wrightsville Beach right now reporting 36 mile per hour. These are gusts, but look at that. As you get into Frying Pan Shoals, we're now getting up to 60 mile per hour winds. You can see that center of the storm crawling closer. You can see it is slowed down a lot. The speed now 5 miles per hour. So this is exactly what we've been fearing and exactly what we've been forecasting for days. The hurricane is slowing down as it makes its approach towards the southeastern North Carolina coastline, and that's why we're in for the long haul on this particular storm. And of course, the storm surge situation will be getting much worse as well. In terms of the wind speed and direction, you can see the winds right now. It's a northerly wind, will be for quite some time as we're on the west side of the storm at the moment. Sustained winds right now, 20 miles per hour in Wilmington. Look at Jacksonville, though, the sustained winds up to 29 miles per hour, but the gusts, look at that. We're now up to 52 miles per hour. So we're starting to get those bands working their way onto the coastline at this point, and it's only going to get worse from here. Even our Bladen County, Columbus County, you're gusting now 20, 25 miles per hour. Fayetteville at 29 miles per hour. And obviously, as that hurricane core edges a little bit closer here through the rest of the afternoon and into the evening hours, we will continue to see these wind values and, of course, the wind gusts go up and go up very dramatically. Probably almost surely going to be seeing hurricane force wind gusts probably here in the coming hours. So obviously, it will be a very tough situation. Now let's talk a little bit about impacts, and this is really, when it comes down to it, the problem we've got with Florence. All right. So right now, we've got some bands of heavy rain working into the area, and obviously that will continue to get worse as we head through the rest of tonight. But notice we have the damaging wind threat still in the moderate range here as we head through the rest of the day, because we really have only seen the tropical storm force winds, at least so far, working their way into the coast. We've had a little bit of minor damage. Hasn't been too bad, at least as of yet. The storm surge, yellow for now, but it is clearly increasing as that center of the storm starts to work its way closer, and a little bit of a threat of tornadoes as well. Now, the tornado tornado threat will probably vary depending on exactly where we are in relation to the storm. I suspect the tornado risk may be a little bit higher as we head through tonight, maybe more so into Friday and Saturday. But the damaging winds, we've got that red for tomorrow. That means high impact, high and widespread impacts. We've got high and widespread impacts as we head into Saturday and probably even into Sunday as well, as the storm center will just finally be starting to pull away. So we're talking about 3 solid days of just a total beating from this particular hurricane, both in terms of storm surge and, of course, the relentless tropical storm and potentially hurricane force winds. It's not, as we've been saying, this is not really a sprint with the storm. This is totally a marathon that we're in right now. It's not going to be just one big blow and out of here. It is going to be body blow after body blow after body blow after body blow, day after day after day, and it will be relentless. And you throw it in fact, of course, we're talking about as much as 1 to 2 feet of rain widespread, with some isolated areas picking up just a lot more than that as well. All right, again, you can see the latest with the storm. 105-mile-per-hour sustained winds. Again, don't focus on that Category 2 hurricane. Yes, we're a little bit thankful the storm did drop from Category 4 strength. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that might be the only minor piece of good news, because by every other measure, this is not a good situation with the storm slamming directly into the coastline and hanging around for days and days and days, and we will continue to track it.
All right, thanks so much. And we are talking a lot about storm surge because that is going to be an issue with this storm. And we've got some video, I believe, of what storm surge looks like for those who have been asking on our Community Voice page. Well, what is storm surge? Okay, you're looking at it.
This is some of the water that has come in off the ocean and has gone over the dunes in this area here and is making its way onto the roadway. This is just where some of the water that is coming in from the storm is going. I can't see. This is in Avon. This is at the closer up there toward the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Hold on a second. Eric wants to have a little bit more. Can you put Eric's mic up, please?
Yeah, I just want to say something. That is the reason why we're starting to see the impacts a little bit further to the north, is because the storm surge, the center of the storm, is right now basically kind of at Wilmington's latitude right now. So that means the water is piling up more along the Outer Banks. Well, guess what? As we head to the rest of tonight, the same thing you're seeing right now in Avon, that's going to start to work its way towards the coast, and probably be even worse here because we're closer to the center of the storm. So eventually that's going to work its way down, and maybe even already starting to do so. North Topsail Beach, Surf City, I suspect that's where we're going to see the first problems with storm surge. And then eventually, as the storm drifts a little bit further to the south, you can be sure Wrightsville Beach will get in on it, Carolina Beach will get on it. Obviously, we're already seeing some water level rises right now, but I'm talking about the true storm surge, that true 9 to potentially up to 13-foot storm surge. It will work its way down the coast as the storm drifts a little bit further to the south. And even Brunswick County, you're probably still looking at a good 3, maybe up to a 6-foot storm surge there as well.
All right, and once again, the video that we were looking at was storm surge in Avon, North Carolina.
Yeah, kind of going between homes there. It washes over the dunes and down in between homes in Dare County along the Outer Banks. The Weather Channel's Dr. Greg Postel explains a little bit more about what storm surge is and exactly what makes it so dangerous.
Storm surge is often the deadliest part of a hurricane. Let me show you what that looks like, starting with a 1 to 3 foot water rise above normally dry ground. Now, this might not sound like much, but remember, this is flowing water being pushed by the wind. We know that 1 to 3 foot of storm surge can knock you off your feet, stall out cars, and even carry cars away. It is too late to evacuate when the water rises to this level. But let's go above that. Let's go 3 to 6 feet, for example. Very large objects can be carried in this kind of flowing water. They can act as battering rams and enhance the damage. But let's go even above that. 9 feet of storm surge. This kind of storm surge is not survivable unless you move to the higher floors of whatever structure you happen to be in. So please follow the advice of the local officials and evacuate as ordered when a hurricane moves in.
Pretty impressive when you take a look at just what 9 feet of water could possibly look like to a normal size, or normally sized human being.
Yeah, I looked at that video earlier, John, and I mean, my jaw just dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, it is frightening to look at that, but so important to get the perspective on what this storm surge could do. So very important that we monitor it very closely.
Yeah, WECT's Kaylee Tracy in Columbus County, specifically at the Econo Lodge in Whiteville. How are the situations there, Kaylee?
Well, John and Fran, it's getting a little windier here. The wind has been picking up just within probably the last 10 minutes, so much so that the Econo Lodge employees here, if you take a look behind me, we'll walk over, you can kind of see they take up the windows here at the office, along these windows here as well. And now they tell me they did not tape up the actual room windows of the people here because they are double paned and they think they can withstand the winds. Now this hotel and the Quality Inn down the road in Whiteville, they are both booked up here with mostly residents actually from Whiteville and other parts of Columbus County saying that they came here just because they feel like it's a safer place than their actual home. A lot of people we've been talking to, their homes flooded in Matthew or they lost them altogether. The building we're at, the Econo Lodge, is a brick building. The employees saying that it's pretty sturdy. It held up with Matthew and it didn't flood in Matthew. And the resident we talked to earlier, a Whiteville resident, tells me that her home flooded in Matthew. So she decided for Florence, she was going to come stay at the Econo Lodge. Take a listen to what she has to say.
We possibly could have stayed at our home, but we're having to come to a motel being it floods, so it's kind of...
In Whiteville, they are both booked up here. Now, if you're worried about your home flooding or you wanted to come get a room here or the Quality Inn, like I said, they are unfortunately all booked up right now, but there are shelters out here in Columbus County. One of them, Edgewood Elementary here in Whiteville, is the one that is full right now. The other ones, if you need to call to get transportation to, there are 4 others throughout the county. You can call 910-642-8193. I'm going to toss it back to you, John and Fran, in the studio.
Well, I think we're at the point now where I'm hoping everybody is put in the house and staying put.
Unless they feel unsafe because of something that may have already happened, right?
Right,
yeah.
Absolutely, because this is when the storm is starting to pick up, and this is it. Ben Smart right now is in Charlotte. He's at the Charlotte Bridge. So describe the conditions there, Ben.
Hey, Fran and John. We had our first blast of what could be to come in the next few hours. We had torrential downpours that lasted just for over a minute. We had winds. We're kind of in a calmer period now, presumably between those bands. But I'll tell you about where we are now. We're in Charlotte, kind of near the downtown area. This is the bridge in Charlotte that is on Main Street. It connects the 2 sides of the town. The mayor says this is his biggest concern. As the Charlotte River floods with the storm surge, we expect this bridge may very likely be flooded over, and that will block access to parts of Charlotte on either side of this. Now, there is another road that runs through Charlotte, but this bridge is the main concern here. As the rain starts coming in, the wind starts coming in, and the storm surge starts picking up, if this floods, this could block people on both sides. But as the conditions are right now, as we said before, we had our first blast of winds and rain picking up just about 10 minutes ago. We're in a calmer period now. So we're a few minutes behind our other colleagues out in different parts of the coast here. But yeah, that's what we're seeing right here in Charlotte. People are still on the roads, presumably getting back to shelter, I assume. But if you are in Charlotte and you're out and about, you are going to want to head back because it's starting to pick up here. Send it back to you guys in the studio. Fran and John.
All right, we're going to keep regularly checking with our reporters who are out and about as the conditions change, and they are changing every time we talk with them. So we're going to go back to Chelsea Donovan, who's on the north end of Carolina Beach, where the surf is really starting to pick up.
Yeah, and the sand, I imagine, looks like it's getting even worse. The little bursts of wind kicks up the sand. That's a horrible feeling.
It's amazing, John and Fran, what a difference a mile makes as we made our way from the north end of Carolina Beach, and now we are actually right now here at Atlanta Avenue. This is the Curry Beach line. Carolina Beach here, Curry Beach right over here. Look at the massive size of the surf. You can see those pylons jetting out from the Atlantic Ocean here, and you can just see the waves overtaking them. So this just gives you an idea of how big the surf, the swell is here. But what's amazing is you can see that this swath of beach here at the Curry Beach line, much different. You're not seeing that storm surge impact yet. That's just because down there at the north end, it's a much thinner piece of land. So you can see that, man, the waves are rocking, but they have not made their way to the dunes yet. If you are kind of wondering where we're at, look here. You can see a man here in a rain suit just kind of checking out what this, this historic event, but you will not see anybody else on the beach, and that's a good thing. This big white building here over to my right, that's Atlantic Towers. Farther down, you can see the tip of the Marriott, so you can tell exactly how far off we are. But in just about a matter of 10 minutes, man, the wind has really picked up. We clocked it in our cell phones at about 32 miles per hour, and the rain is also really starting to pick up. So we can see that just over a matter of 15, 20 minutes, the conditions really starting to deteriorate here, John and Fran.
Much. And you not only look at where Chelsea is, you can look at the camera and see that the winds are picking up. That's when the water sprays back on the camera. So conditions every half hour now appear to be changing.
Kristen Crawford is behind the camera shooting for Chelsea down there in Carolina Beach, doing yeoman's work, both of them down there in those elements that are so difficult. Let's go to WECT's Brad Myers. He is in the digital studio for us. Brad?
Yeah, guys, we just got updates just a few minutes ago. System pressure advisories that's coming in from the Brunswick County Public Utilities Operations Center. I believe we have a map as well ready on this. This is affecting customers in Brunswick County. System pressure advisories have been issued for Brunswick County Public Utility customers from 700 Caswell Beach Road to 50 Caswell Beach Road. That is inside the Baptist Assembly, and for the entire island of Sunset Beach. Both advisories are due to valves being closed in preparation of Hurricane Florence. So what you need to know is that you will need to boil your water for at least a minute until further notice. That will help kill any disease-causing organisms that may be present in the water. So again, we want to reiterate, that is boil water advisories and system pressure advisories for customers 700 Caswell Beach Road to 50 Caswell Beach Road, and really everybody in that area of Sunset Beach. This means that you could have low water pressure or possibly no water pressure at different points. I know a lot of you are still depending on water. That's why we've kind of told you ahead of the storm, if you can, fill up your bathtubs, any jugs, everything like that, because clearly stuff like this is going to start happening, especially more in those coastal areas. So again, system pressure advisories, be aware of that, and also make sure that you boil your water for those of you who are in Sunset Beach, and again, 700 Caswell Beach Road to 50 Caswell Beach Road. We're going to continue to watch these advisories when they come in. We will try to pass those along, guys.
All right, thanks so much, Brad. All right, we're going to take a live picture now from downtown New Bern, North Carolina, showing storm surge flooding from Florence. This is a live picture right now. South Front Street in front of the New Bern Convention Center is closed, along with East Front Street. Look at that.
Yeah, and if you know New Bern, you know that the rivers kind of merge right there near the Neuse River down there, and it's a low-lying area. The convention center is right there, and as you can tell, and Eric said this a little while earlier, is that a little further to our north and our east, they're starting to feel some of these impacts of the storm as it starts moving its way toward the west and the north toward us. So the city is under a mandatory evacuation, but many people decided to stay there and ride out the storm. And you see this is the flooding in downtown New Bern, and a gentleman from another station in Raleigh standing right there in front of the camera. We were kind of borrowing their signal there for a second to give you that picture, but live pictures from downtown New Bern, where the flooding is already happening, as you saw in those pictures.
And we can tell you that we're going to start getting more video in. Can we take this video now from Swansboro? Yeah, see, look at that. Getting a clearer picture now of what our meteorologists have been telling us all along, that we were going to see a lot of water in this storm, a lot of storm surge. And so wow, it's not just our immediate area, John. It's, you know, we just took a look at New Bern. This is Swansboro. This is widespread because this is a very big storm. Let's get the latest on this storm now. Let's go to Kelly McGlynn.
Yeah, Fran, a very wide storm. So we always say not to focus on the center of that storm because impacts will be felt well outside the center. Hurricane force winds extending 80 miles outside the center of that storm. So that's a diameter of 160 miles. Tropical storm force winds extending over 200 miles. That's a diameter of over 400 miles. So not just people getting impacted by the center of the storm where that's located, impacts to be felt widespread. So again, lots of folks under the gun for all these major impacts moving forward. And as we put this into motion, that color there in the red, the center, that's your hurricane force winds. The outer yellow color indicating tropical storm force winds. So we're already feeling those tropical storm force winds in some areas. This is going to continue to pick up as the center of the storm starts to move closer to our coast as it moves inland, expecting to see those hurricane force winds for most of our area too, and could extend really over all of our 5 main counties at some point. So hurricane force winds 75 miles per hour and greater. So we're going to see lots of uprooted trees, power outages. I think I'm already seeing some of those on Duke Energy, so we might want to check into that a little bit. Otherwise, continuing to see the wind stick with us too, moving forward in time. We're looking over the weekend as well. Tropical storm force winds are possible for the next couple of days moving forward. Even on the backside of this system, still going to be seeing strong winds, storm surge, significant flooding, again, not only by the coast, but for areas further inland as well. So as we look at your hour-by-hour forecast, we're looking at the future radar model and your winds. We put this into motion. The center of that storm still offshore, but it is expected to continue to move onshore as we head throughout the overnight hours and into your Friday. So winds could be projected to be upwards of the upper 60s. This is your windfall graphic here. This isn't temperatures. So moving forward in time, this continues to make a forward motion, moving into portions of Brunswick County, New Hanover County, possibly our model picking up on 123 mile-per-hour winds. This is right by the center of the storm. So keep in mind, the strongest winds will be felt right near that eye wall. So if you get caught in the middle of the storm, not only do you go through the eye wall once, you go through the center of the storm where everything is calm when you go through the eye of the storm, and then you have another eye wall to go through. So you have 2 rounds of winds potentially 100 plus miles per hour. Not only that, you see those orange colors, the red colors on the map, significant torrential rainfall expected. So this is, again, a life-threatening event. And not only to your life, too, structures are going to be damaged, too. If you keep that in mind, think of 125 mile-per-hour wind gusts. That could take, roofs off. It could take trees up. Again, power outages possible. This is stopped 7 a.m. Friday. Not just a landfall yet, but as we move this in motion late Friday into Saturday, the center of the storm could move over southern Brunswick County. So areas like Bald Head Island, Southport, Oak Island could be in the center of the storm. Again, this all still fine-tuning as we closely monitor this. But again, impacts felt well outside that storm. This continues to make its westerly track, and as it does so, check out this band on the backside of that system. Significant heavy rainfall. Not only do we worry about that, though, the tornado threat will still be increasing, too. Isolated spin-up tornadoes will be possible, but notice winds still at 80 miles per hour. That's hurricane force winds for right here in Wilmington. Put this into motion moving Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. I mean, guys, this is going to continue to be seeing time after time the same thing. So once this starts, expected to continue to see the storm surge, the flooding, the hurricane force winds, tropical storm force winds. We can't emphasize enough that you need to, be hunkered down, have your hurricane plan in place. Hopefully you guys are prepared for what's going to come, because not only are we dealing with this for a significant time period, this thing's going to stall. So, I mean, this is just put through Saturday, and we still have all of this widespread. This could continue Sunday, too. And the aftermath of this, I mean, is going to be destructive and historical for sure.
All right, thanks so much. And as Kelly said, this is a very large storm affecting a very large area. This is going to affect millions. It's threatening millions of people.
Yeah, Hurricane Florence threatening people across the southeast. FEMA is warning that this is a dangerous storm, been saying it all week. And after it makes landfall, it's expected to slow down and bring a lot of rain on land in North and South Carolina.
Yeah, Jan Pomerantz has the latest details now from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Please hear my message. We cannot underestimate this storm.
Hurricane Florence is making its final approach to the Carolinas as the region braces for what is expected to be a catastrophic storm.
Rain kind of deteriorates your foundation, wash your house away.
Residents in Florence's path know what's coming and many are heeding warnings from officials who want them to take precautions.
We've asked you to leave. If you don't, then please go shelter in place and stay safe.
Those who have found refuge at local shelters say they are prepared for the long haul.
As long as it takes, because we go back home and then it's very bad, then I wish I would have stayed here.
Wind speeds have decreased over the past several hours, but FEMA warns that several other dangers still remain.
Please do not let your guard down. The storm surge forecast associated with this storm has not changed. It has remained the same.
That storm surge, along with the expected slow-moving speed of Florence once it makes landfall, will lead to heavy wind and rain over the next several days.
It's going to be very hard for this water to evacuate, so you're going to see a tremendous amount of inland flooding.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper says his state could feel the brunt of it.
We're on the wrong side of this thing. This storm will bring destruction to North Carolina.
And in South Carolina, similar warnings from officials who say there is little they can do to help once the storm arrives.
All right, and that's one concern of this storm. The other, power outages. And it has been said that there's, in all likelihood, going to be a massive power outage.
Yeah, and in some areas, weeks, not days without power, weeks instead. Let's go to Brad in the digital studio talking more about those outages.
Yeah, guys, we've been kind of keeping an eye on those throughout the day, of course, as the storm continues to hit us. This is the Duke Energy map. And what I can tell you is that if you look in our area, you can see it's not too bad right now. There's about a dozen here just back before you get to Carolina Beach. Downtown, about 58. Up here, well above Rocky Point, only about 3. However, the thing that kind of jumps out to me is that if you just kind of go back up here, up around Lejeune and whatnot, look at that, 1,600. You click here, several hundred, 797. Back in the Havelock area, more than 2,600, 1,700. You kind of go closer to the Outer Banks, and that's where we're seeing hundreds and even now thousands of outages. And as we've said, this is what is coming this way. So we can expect for those power outages to start here in our area as the storm kind of continues to reach us here. We're going to, of course, continue to follow this. But if you check this out over into Brunswick County, still really no outages reported. We will continue to keep an eye on this, guys. And, of course, we'll pass that along as soon as we get updates on those numbers.
All right, Brad, thanks. Let's show you some video of Myrtle Beach and the airport south of our border. All flights tonight are canceled because of Hurricane Florence.
All flights after 7 p.m. last night out of Wilmington International Airport were also canceled. Now, John Smith went out and talked to the people who put rail spikes in a tree to mark the storm surge of Hurricanes Fran and Floyd.
It's in the Oyster Bay community off Masonboro Sound Road.
Down here at the Oyster Bay subdivision, a very low-lying area right on the intercoastal waterway, and already with high tide, the water has come up and already covered part of the parking lot down here by the water. But down here, because something very special over the years, the people who have lived in this subdivision over the different storms have nailed a railroad tie on this tree to signify and show how high the water came in each and every storm.
So this is the level of surge when Fran from 1996, and this is Floyd, September 16, 1999. Our community placed this in honor of the fact that it was terrifying when it happened, but also the beauty of what was recovered, and a reminder that even though these things are threats, we choose to live here, because when it all goes away, there's nothing that compares to the beauty of Eastern North Carolina. And I'm predicting that Florence might be right here.
So the residents now going to have to wait and see over the next coming days how high they're going to have to put their next railroad tie.
All right, it's very interesting to give that perspective. We've got another perspective now on this storm, and that comes from Jesslyn Florence. Jess?
Yeah, guys, so I just want to show the tropical satellite and radar just one more time. So the latest advisory is going to be coming out at 5 p.m. But as of right now, Hurricane Florence Still a Category 2, but we can't stress enough. We've been saying this the whole time. That number really doesn't matter. It's all about the impacts that we're going to be feeling over the next couple of days. So sustained winds right now, 105 miles per hour, gusts at 125. You can see it spinning right off of our coast right now. Definitely getting hit by some of those outer bands already. Still moving west-northwest at 5 miles per hour. Notice that 5 miles per hour. It's a very slow-moving storm, and that's what we've been stressing this entire time. It's going to be a period of a couple days that we're going to be seeing this in our area. So you can see Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even Monday, it's going to just be meandering right off of our coast. Category 2 hurricane expected still. But regardless, like I mentioned before, that number really doesn't matter. This is going to be a very slow moving storm dumping lots of rain. We're expecting anywhere from a foot to 2 feet of rain being dumped in the area. So we're going to be seeing significant flooding over the next couple of days. And like I mentioned, we're already seeing some of this in our area, that heavy rainfall and flooding. Already seeing lots of the areas across our area that's already seeing a lot of these heavy rain bands coming in, even the damaging wind. We're seeing those winds, not tropical storm force quite yet here in our area, but definitely seeing those gusts that are well into the 30s, the 40s. Storm surge, we've been stressing that as well. We're going to be seeing anywhere from 8+ feet of that storm surge, anywhere from moderate to scattered effects today, but definitely once that starts to make landfall going into later this evening into tomorrow, definitely Saturday, and as I mentioned too, even Sunday, even Monday, we're going to still be seeing these effects and that chance for some isolated tornadoes as well. You have all these bands coming through our area. They're going to start to whip up those small little isolated tornadoes. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that as well. But here's that radar. You can see it's actually starting to show up on our radar is the eye of the hurricane. So it is actually starting to move in as we talk. But you can see, yeah, there's the yellows, the oranges, even some reds. We've been seeing these scattered showers all morning, but that heavy stuff is really going to start to come in over the, it's starting now, but over the next couple of days, really. And like I mentioned, lots of it. We're going to be seeing anywhere 24+ inches of this rain. So we're going to be seeing that low visibility, like I've been saying this whole time, the low land flooding, the long-term river implications. We're going to be seeing historic major flooding in all of these rivers. So it's not just the storm surge that's going to be coming into the beaches. It's the rivers, the estuaries, anything that's connected to the rivers. So you got the storm surge, but also that rain that's going to be dumping down, that's also what's going to be causing these rivers to flood. And that storm surge isn't going to be letting the rivers drain anywhere. So we're going to be seeing this for the next couple days. So this is definitely going to be a life-threatening situation and definitely a situation that is going to impact structures and homes as well. So I'm going to be tossing it back to you guys, and we're going to be keeping you guys updated as that next advisory comes out at 5 p.m.
All right, thanks so much, Jess, for that update. We're going to go back now to Chelsea Donovan, who is at Carolina Beach. We were saying that the conditions are changing every 30 minutes. It looks like it's intensifying even less than that now.
Yeah. Chelsea?
Yeah, John and Fran, minute by minute, this is intensifying. We're back at the north end at Salt Marsh and Carolina Beach Avenue North at the Carolina Beach North Fishing Pier, and wow, the waves just crashing into the pylons here. And what's amazing is we are just about at low tide. Low tide here is at 5:09, high tide just after 11 p.m. tonight, and it's a sight to see here at this fishing pier that jets out about 700 feet into the Atlantic Ocean. As you'll recall, back when Hurricane Fran came through this area, part of that was ripped off. We were just being escorted by one of the folks here in Carolina Beach with the police department. We kind of rode down Canal Avenue and had to stop and get onto Carolina Beach Avenue North because it is starting to wash over. As you can see, sand making its way here to the left of me. That runoff, that storm surge coming in, and that is one of the biggest threats with Hurricane Florence is that storm surge predicted about 6 to 9 feet, also predicted about 20 inches of rain. And as you can tell, we're looking at probably about 30-mile-an-hour plus wind gusts right now. And you can, like you mentioned, every few minutes when we're riding, getting out and making our stop, trying to show you the conditions here, they are really starting to deteriorate, John and Fran, rapidly. And man, it's just an unbelievable sight to see when we are out here covering these storms, and we see what this pier looks like on a beautiful beach day, littered, crawling and bustling with tourists, and to see it now just being pounded by those waves crashing in. It's really an unbelievable sight to see.
Chelsea, can you tell whether the beaches are really